Chapter 55-58. Ling Tianyu let out a long sigh of relief. Only now did he realize that his back was covered in cold sweat. It was absolutely impossible to say that he wasn't nervous. After all, he didn't have the slightest confidence in grasping that fleeting opportunity. Fortunately, he achieved it perfectly in the end. As the cultivator of the Tyrant Saber sect at the peak of the late stage of the Gold Elixir realm fell to the ground, the entire place fell into a strange silence. No one had expected such an outcome. Some people were not even prepared to watch the battle. When they raised their heads, everything was already over. Instant kill. And it was an instant kill between a peak late-stage gold core cultivator and a peak late-stage gold core cultivator. Everyone was wondering if there was something wrong with their eyes. Cheating. He must have cheated. How could such a thing happen? The first to break the silence was Wei Yidao, who hadn't fully recovered from his injuries. He refused to believe that Ling Tianyu, who had just defeated him by a fluke, could kill a peak late-stage gold core cultivator in an instant. Wouldn't he, Wei Yidao, be nothing if he went up? Ling Tianyu waved his black dagger and glanced at Wei Yidao with disdain. He couldn't be bothered to deal with this idiot. He had just killed his opponent fair and square. Cheating? Cheating my ass. Great Elder, can you announce the result now? Ling Tianyu turned to the Great Elder of the Ruins town, who was still in shock. The result. The Great Elder of the Ruins town took a deep breath and looked at Ling Tianyu deeply before continuing. The Thousand Blades sect challenged the Tyrant Blades sect in the third round. Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect won. The Tyrant Blades sect has dropped to the 5th reserve position. The Thousand Blades sect has been promoted to the top 10. Even if the Qingquan sect wanted to side with the Tyrant Blades sect, they couldn't do anything about it. After all, the corpse was still on the stage. They couldn't possibly lie through their teeth, right? Wei Yidao roared. I don't accept this. Ling Tianyu must have cheated. Otherwise, how could a peak late-stage gold core cultivator like him defeat a peak late-stage gold core cultivator? And it was an instant kill. There must be a problem. The Great Elder of the Ruins town frowned slightly. Although the Tyrant Blade sect was under the Qingquan sect, it was just a sect after all. Wasn't this the same as questioning the Qingquan sect? Wei Yidao, are you questioning the impartiality of the Archaic Alliance? The Grand Elder of the ruined town was a bit displeased, so he spoke in a neutral tone. Wei Yidao shuddered. Only now did he realize that his words were somewhat inappropriate. He hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, Great Elder's words are too serious. There is no need to doubt the impartiality of the Archaic Alliance. Junior just doesn't trust the character of the Thousand Blades faction. The Great Elder of Ruins town snorted and no longer paid attention to Wei Yidao. However, Wei Yidao turned around and provoked Ling Tianyu. Ling Tianyu, don't think that you can get the position by using dishonest means. If you have the guts, let's fight again. Ling Tianyu chuckled and said with a sneer, Why would I want to fight again? Are the rules set by your family? If you want to fight, sure, but you have to bet 1,000 spiritual jades. Right now the Thousand Blades sect is one of the 10 small sects. It has both status and status. You guys are merely the 5th candidate, hee hee your ghost. Wei Yidao was about to go mad with anger. With red eyes he roared. Good. Ling Tianyu, just you wait. Our Tyrant Saber sect will definitely challenge your Thousand Blades sect. Isn't it just 1,000 spiritual jades? This young master has plenty of spiritual jades. Let's see what you can do at that time. Ling Tianyu just smiled, turned around and walked down the stage, leaving Wei Yidao with the back of his head. His contemptuous look made Wei Yidao's blood boil even more. He wished he could immediately draw his saber and hack him 100 times to vent his anger. After Ling Tianyu left the stage, the Great Elder of Ruins town signaled the people of the Tyrant Saber sect to quickly come up and carry the corpse away. Then he said, The challenge of the Thousand Blades sect has ended. Have the Chu family and Xuanji sect gathered enough spiritual jades? Chu Tianlu had already received the financial support of Lin Yi. He immediately stood up and said, Our Chu family is ready. Please check it, Great Elder. After he finished speaking, a bag full of spiritual jades was sent to the stage. The Great Elder of Ruins town glanced at it and waved his hand to let people take it away. He said, Since you have gathered enough spiritual jades, let's start the duel. I wonder which sect your Chu family will challenge. The people below the stage had already recovered from the shock just now, although many people were still discussing Ling Tianyou's insta-killing of a peak late gold core expert. The new challenge also attracted many people's attention. The Chu family is very strong. I always thought they were mediocre. Who knew they were actually hiding their strength? That's for sure. Without a nascent soul cultivator. If others knew they had so many gold core experts, they might be exterminated. Who would allow such an enemy to grow and threaten their position? That's right. Now that the Chu family has confidence, it's reasonable for them to enter the 10 small groups. Do you think they will choose the Thousand Blades sect, which has just risen? Don't be fooled by the fact that the Thousand Blades sect only has 2 people. Both of them are experts. I think Yiling sect is more likely. After all, there was a rumor that they wanted to unite by marriage, but there was no further news. They probably fell out. It had to be said that there was a lot of news from the audience. Unfortunately, they didn't expect that both the Thousand Blades sect and Yiling sect were in the same boat as the Chu family. The boat was called Lin Yi. Therefore, no matter how weak they were among the 10 small groups, the Chu family wouldn't challenge them. Chu Tianlu looked around calmly, then pointed in the direction of the Six Directions sect and said, "The Chu family is challenging the Six Directions sect." Although this result was a little unexpected, it was still reasonable. In terms of strength, apart from the Leaf Spirit sect and the Thousand Blades sect, the weakest should be the Six Directions sect. Moreover, the Six Directions sect had fought with the Three Talents sect before. Although they had won rather easily, they had still expended some of their strength. The great elder of the ruins town nodded expressionlessly and said, "The Chu family is challenging the Six Directions sect. In the first match, both sides will send people onto the stage." Chu Tianlu turned around and pointed at a young man. "Tianxin, I'll leave the first match to you." "Yes, clan leader." Chu Tianxin was a genius disciple of the Chu family's branch family. According to seniority, he was Chu Tianlu's younger cousin. He was 2 years younger than Chu Tianlu, and his strength was already at the great circle of foundation establishment. In this archaic distinguished meeting, Chu Tianlu wouldn't take part himself. Firstly, his skills such as immovable shadow, shadow change bones, and so on weren't powerful combat skills. Secondly, as the clan leader, and a clan leader with relatively low strength at that, it was best not to go up and fight for no reason, so as to avoid damaging morale. Chapter 55-59. The Six Harmonies sect's representative was also a foundation establishment great perfection disciple, Huang Chuanrong. In the primordial underworld, he was one of the top 20 foundation establishment cultivators. Chu Tianxin, on the other hand, was not well known, which was in line with the Chu family's goal of keeping a low profile. After the two of them went on stage, they introduced themselves. They were very polite, and compared to the tyrant's blade school, who would always yell and draw their blades, they were much more polite. However, when it came to a real fight, there was no need to be polite. Six Harmonies of Heaven and Earth. Huang Chuanrong got into a fighting stance and shouted. For a moment, the waves of vital energy exploded like boiling water, vaguely forming an invisible array. The so-called Six Harmonies referred to the top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. The Six Harmonies sect was one of the few sects in the primordial underworld that did not use weapons, because their martial techniques did not rely on weapons. Most of the time, they trapped their opponents in their own vital energy array, gaining an extremely advantageous advantage from the start. Just like now, after Huang Chuanrong used the Six Harmonies of Heaven and Earth, Chu Tianxin had entered Huang Chuanrong's territory, and his strength was first suppressed. However, Chu Tianxin did not panic at all. He still looked at Huang Chuanrong calmly, and at the same time, he observed the vital energy waves of the Six Harmonies of Heaven and Earth. "Brother Chu, I'm sorry." Huang Chuanrong's lips curled into a smile. With a tap of his foot, his figure immediately turned into a shadow, and he struck a palm at Chu Tianxin's chest. Although the palm's momentum was not violent, it affected the vital energy waves of the Six Harmonies of Heaven and Earth, and it surged towards Chu Tianxin from top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Within the 6 harmonies, there was no way out. If everything went smoothly, this one move would be enough to decide the victor. Unfortunately, things did not seem to go as smoothly as Huang Chuanrong thought. Chu Tianxin looked at Huang Chuanrong charging at him calmly, but did not dodge. He did not even take a defensive stance. Huang Chuanrong was still puzzled, but the palm had already passed through Chu Tianxin's body. An illusion? Huang Chuanrong was shocked, and a layer of cold sweat broke out on his back. When did Chu Tianxin turn himself into an illusion? Huang Chuanrong did not notice at all. This was a fatal mistake. How could there be the slightest mistake when fighting an opponent of the same level? It's not an illusion. It's just a shadow. Chu Tianxin's voice suddenly rang out in Huang Chuanrong's ears, causing all the hairs on Huang Chuanrong's body to stand on end. In the middle of all this, he actually let Chu Tianxin sneak up behind him without him knowing. Huang Chuanrong was shocked, but he did not lose his sense of propriety. He knew that Chu Tianxin was right behind him, but he did not stupidly turn around. Doing so would only cause him to be killed when he was caught off guard. In the current situation, the only thing he could do was put some distance between himself and Chu Tianxin. Only then would he be able to find an opportunity to counterattack. That was why Huang Chuanrong charged forward with all his might. At the same time, he gathered the true energy fluctuations of the 6 directions heaven and earth around him. On one hand, he could increase his defense, and on the other, he could restrict Chu Tianxin. That wasn't enough. Huang Chuanrong didn't retract his palm strike either. He drew a semicircle in the air and threw it behind him. If he was lucky, he might be able to hit Chu Tianxin behind him. It had to be said that Huang Chuanrong's reaction in this situation was quite perfect. Unfortunately, his opponent was not the same type of person he used to be. That was why this series of actions was meaningless in the eyes of the people below the stage. Huang Chuanrong immediately realized this, because he could already see that the person in front of him was Chu Tianxin, who had a calm expression on his face. How is this possible? Huang Chuanrong was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. In order to deal with this crisis, he had rushed forward with all his might and struck back with all his might. There was almost no room for him to move, but how did Chu Tianxin get in front of him? It's the Chu family's shadow-following body, the evolved version of the shadow-sticking step, and someone has actually mastered it in the foundation establishment stage. That's really not easy. Qi Denai from the Heaven Awakening faction suddenly exclaimed in admiration. When he looked at the Chu family's camp, there was a hint of change in his eyes. Beside him, the tribulation-passing sage's expression did not change, and no one knew what he was thinking. On the other hand, Shangguan Qingyun was smiling happily. The Chu family and the Shangguan family were on the same side, and the Chu family's strength was also beneficial to the Shangguan family. Chu Tianxin, who had appeared in front of Huang Chuanrong, smiled faintly and said, "Brother Huang, please excuse me." Similarly, he sent a palm strike straight at Huang Chuanrong's chest, and even his words were returned almost exactly the same. If this palm strike had landed, it would not have been fatal, but it would have been enough to make Huang Chuanrong retreat in defeat. In a moment of desperation, Huang Chuanrong saw that he would not be able to dodge this palm strike, so he immediately bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. In an impossible situation, his body began to spin on the spot. 6 harmonies of heaven and earth, reversal of yin and yang. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had been turned upside down. Chu Tianxin had clearly sent a palm strike at Huang Chuanrong, but now, the one that was about to hit was Chu Tianxin himself. It was as if he had slapped a mirror. At the same time, Huang Chuanrong's right leg was straight like a whip, striking fiercely at Chu Tianxin's head. After using the yin-yang reversal, Huang Chuanrong had suffered some serious internal injuries, but at the cost of that, he was able to gather all the true energy in his body again, gathering it into his leg. As long as he could hit his target, even if Chu Tianxin did not die, he would still be severely injured. Just as Chu Tianxin's palm strike was about to hit him, and Huang Chuanrong's leg was about to touch Chu Tianxin's head, Chu Tianxin's body suddenly twisted, then disappeared once again. Although it was said that Chu Tianxin had disappeared, that was only for Huang Chuanrong. The audience below the stage could clearly see that Chu Tianxin had mysteriously moved behind Huang Chuanrong, his head down and feet up. His hand was already in front of Huang Chuanrong's neck, gripping his throat. As long as Chu Tianxin wanted to, he could end Huang Chuanrong's life at any time. Brother Huang's 6 directions of heaven and earth is indeed marvelous. But too bad you've met your little brother. Between heaven and earth, in all directions, my shadow is everywhere. Chu Tianxin did not kill Huang Chuanrong, but merely maintained his deterrence towards Huang Chuanrong as he spoke calmly into Huang Chuanrong's ear. Huang Chuanrong smiled bitterly and waved his hand to retract his true qi, and both of them returned to their normal standing posture. In this match, Huang Chuanrong wholeheartedly accepted his loss. No matter how powerful the 6 directions of heaven and earth was, it could not lock down a shadow. Just as Chu Tianxin had said, meeting such a natural enemy, there was no shame in losing. Chapter 55-60. Huang Chuanrong now understood. It was no wonder the Chu clan had challenged the Tang sect. If the Tang sect had been in the Chu clan's position, it would definitely have challenged a sect that was being suppressed. Thus, this time, the Tang sect was truly going to be knocked out of the 10 minor schools. What they needed to consider was whether they would have a chance to return. Chu Tianxin withdrew his finger from Huang Chuanrong's throat. After Huang Chuanrong turned around, he smiled and cupped his fists. "Thank you for letting me win." Huang Chuanrong smiled bitterly and cupped his fists. Without saying anything more, he turned and left the stage. The Chu clan has challenged the Tang sect. The first match was between Foundation Establishment cultivators, and the Chu clan has won. Next is the second match between Golden Core cultivators. Both sides, please send your representatives onto the stage. The Grand Elder of the Ruins town announced formally, his face still expressionless. After Chu Tianxin left the stage, Grand Elder Chu Yunting stood up and walked onto the stage. Although the Chu clan had many Golden Core cultivators, only Grand Elder Chu Yunting had reached Golden Core consummation. For safety's sake, he could only send Chu Yunting to fight. But when Chu Yunting stepped onto the stage, the Tang sect did not follow. Instead, they discussed among themselves for a while, and then someone stood up and said, "There's no need to fight this match. Our Tang sect admits defeat." The audience instantly fell into an uproar. The Tang sect had already lost one match. If they admitted defeat now, they would be handing over their position as one of the 10 minor schools. Even if the Tang sect still had a chance to gamble, that would still require 1,000 spirit jades. For this 1,000 spirit jades, they should at least stake it all, right? Chu Yunting froze for a moment before understanding dawned on him. The Tang sect was probably trying to preserve their strength. Through the first match, he knew that the Chu clan's techniques just so happened to restrain the Tang sect. Rather than fighting the Chu clan head-on, even if they could win 1 or 2 matches, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. It was better to take a step back, circle around the Chu clan, and then find a weaker sect to gamble with, and return to the 10 minor schools. In any case, obtaining a spot in the 10 minor schools without bloodshed was much better than fighting to the death. Chu Yunting smiled and cupped his hands to the Tang sect. "Thanks for letting me win." The person who had stood up to speak also cupped his hands to Chu Yunting, and then sat back down. The Grand Elder of the ruined town signaled for Chu Yunting to leave before announcing the results of the challenge. The Chu clan has successfully challenged the Tang faction and become one of the 10 minor powers. The Tang faction has been relegated to the last place. For the great Tang sect to voluntarily concede, regardless of the reason, the Chu clan's strength was evident. The smaller sects in the audience all looked at the Chu clan's square formation with envious gazes. The rise of this clan was basically unstoppable. Next is the Profound Theory sect's battle wager. Have you gathered all the spirit jades? The great elder of Ruins Town didn't have a good impression of the Chu clan, so he didn't say anything else, and directly asked about the Profound Secret School's intentions. Actually, the Xuanji sect was also in a difficult position. Among the 10 minor sects, the weaker ones were the Xuanyu sect and the Tang sect. Other than these 2 sects, the Leaf Spirit sect and the Thousand Blades sect were also very weak. However, these 2 sects were related to Lin Yi, So the Xuanji sect couldn't just slap Lin Yi in the face, right? The problem was that they had already agreed to the wager battle, so they couldn't cancel it even if they wanted to. If they said that they didn't gather all the spirit jades, then it wouldn't be as simple as losing face. Instead, they would be ridiculed by others and become a laughingstock for bragging. After all, a sect's wealth was also very important. Li Yunjia handed the bag of spirit jades to the people of Ruins Town, then said, "We have gathered all the spirit jades. As for the sect we want to challenge, our profound secret school will choose the Leaf Spirit sect." It wasn't strange for those who didn't know the relationship between the profound secret school and the Leaf Spirit sect. After all, among the 10 minor sects besides the Thousand Blades sect, the Leaf Spirit sect was the weakest. Moreover, the Thousand Blades sect had a nascent soul Great Circle cultivator, and Ling Tianyu had insta-killed an opponent that was a major realm higher than him. Speaking of which, the Thousand Blades sect was definitely not to be trifled with. Choosing the Leaf Spirit sect was the inevitable result. Lin Yi frowned slightly. Others might not know, but there was no way the profound secret school didn't know about his relationship with the Leaf Spirit sect. Why did they still want to challenge the Leaf Spirit sect? Could it be that Hong Xianlei thought that he could do whatever he wanted after advancing to the nascent soul stage? He had said that he wasn't allowed to interfere in the affairs of the profound secret school. Was he going to break his vow now? As for Li Yunjia, Lin Yi didn't suspect him. This guy was quite similar to Xianijia. Generally, it was unlikely that he would make such a decision. Although he was the one who said it, Lin Yi was more suspicious that Hong Xianlei was behind this. However, it wasn't appropriate for Lin Yi to say anything in this situation. He could only continue to wait and see. The Great Elder of Ruins Town had a strange look on his face. As a member of the Qingkuan sect, and the Great Elder, who was in charge of the entire Ruins Town, he was naturally more aware of the situation on Lin Yi's side. Now that he saw that the Leaf Spirit sect and the Profound Secret School were fighting each other for the position of the 10 minor sects, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't happy. Suppressing the urge to laugh out loud, the Great Elder of Ruins Town said calmly, "The Profound Secret School is challenging the Leaf Spirit sect, one of the 10 minor sects. The first match of the foundation building stage will begin immediately. Both sides send your people onto the stage." Wait. As soon as the Great Elder of Ruins Town finished speaking, Li Yunjia raised his hand and said, "There's no need to fight. The Profound Secret School admits defeat." Admit defeat? Let alone the Great Elder of Ruins Town. Even the spectators below the stage found it hard to understand. What on earth was going on? You're saying that the Profound Secret School admits defeat in this foundation building stage battle? The Great Elder of Ruins Town asked uncertainly. It was rare to see two closely related sects fighting each other. Wouldn't it be boring if one side admitted defeat? Li Yunjia shook his head solemnly and said, "Of course not." The crowd relaxed and thought to themselves, "That's more like it. If you admit defeat, why the fuck did you take the initiative to challenge them? Hurry up and fight. Don't you know that everyone is waiting to watch a good show?" To be honest, the Great Elder of Ruins Town's thoughts were exactly the same as the spectators below the stage. However, what Li Yunjia said next made the Great Elder of Ruins Town roll his eyes involuntarily. "What I'm saying is that there's no need to fight. The Profound Secret School admits defeat in this wagered battle." Li Yunjia enunciated his words clearly to ensure that no one would mishear a single word. However, the people who heard this all felt that there was something wrong with their ears. This idiot spent 1,000 spiritual jade to challenge them just to admit defeat? Was he crazy? Or had the world gone crazy? The Great Elder of Ruins Town could not believe what he was hearing. For a moment, he was so stunned that he even forgot to speak. Chapter 5561. The Grand Elder of Ruins Town suddenly understood. This was a fucking shill, right? He spent 1,000 spiritual jades just to say this, to make the Leaf Spirit sect seem unfathomable, and avoid being challenged by the High Feather sect, and the Six Directions sect, two sects that had fallen out of the 10 small sects, right? Come to think of it, since these two sects were in cahoots, the 1,000 spiritual jades weren't really spent. It was just a trade. Could they not be so fucking shameless? The Grand Elder of Ruins Town, who thought he had seen through everything, was furious. However, there was nothing he could do. Rules were rules. There was nothing he could do about this loophole. The Leaf Spirit sect wins. It will remain in the 10 small sects. The Grand Elder of Ruins Town's mouth twitched. He gave a perfunctory reply and turned to the High Feather sect. Does the High Feather sect want to participate in the wagered battle? The people from the High Feather sect considered for a moment, and finally gave up on the wagered battle. They were the weaker ones among the 10 small sects. At most, they were slightly stronger than the Leaf Spirit sect, and were on par with the Six Directions sect. Now that the Six Directions sect had also fallen, the Leaf Spirit sect was a little uncertain, because of the Profound Destiny sect's sudden move. Moreover, the Leaf Spirit sect and the High Feather sect were both under the Enlightening Heaven sect. It was fine if they were confident, but if they weren't, they would become a laughingstock and even offend their allies. Most importantly, 1,000 spiritual jades was not a small amount. Hence, the High Feather sect could only wait for the next primeval grand meeting. During this time, Li Yunjia had already run over to Lin Yi to explain. Uncle Master Lin, this disciple suddenly challenged the Leaf Spirit sect, and did not inform you in advance. I really did not have enough time. I'm here to apologize to you. When Lin Yi saw the Profound Destiny sect admit defeat, he already understood. He immediately smiled. I understand. You think that the Profound Destiny sect is not confident against any other sects. So you might as well challenge the Leaf Spirit sect and admit defeat. On one hand, you can bluff for the Leaf Spirit sect. On the other hand, you can transfer the spiritual jades to the Leaf Spirit sect, so that the Ruins Town Conference doesn't benefit, right? Uncle Master Lin is really perceptive. Li Yunjia smiled and flattered him. Then he continued. Actually, I just don't want to let the spiritual jades fall into the hands of outsiders. I didn't think of any false bravado. There's such an effect. What a lucky hit. Although it's a little embarrassing, it's worth it. At least I didn't let Marshal Granduncle lose any of his spirit jades. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. This kid is rather interesting. At the very least, he knows how to be flexible, and he's also flexible. Compared to Hong Xuanlei's obstinate and self-opinionated personality, Li Yunjia is clearly more suitable to be the sect master. No matter what, Li Yunjia's bold and unconstrained move saved the Yiling sect some trouble. Originally, the Yiling sect was likely to be defeated by the 10 Little Ones. Now perhaps they didn't have to worry anymore. After the Profound Feather School gave up on the gambling match, the next was the Tyrant's Blade School, which had just been defeated by the Thousand Blades School. Wei Yidao wholeheartedly believed that Ling Tianyu had used some tricks and a sneak attack to win the match. Thus, without waiting for the Great Elder of the Ruins Town to speak, he directly jumped up and shouted, Our Tyrant's Blade School wants to gamble with the Thousand Blades School. The spiritual jades are right here. The Great Elder of the Ruins Town frowned slightly. This Wei Yidao was actually quite annoying. He hadn't even said anything yet, and Wei Yidao had already jumped out to scare him. If it weren't for the fact that the Qianquan school had supported the Tyrant's Blade School a lot more, the Great Elder of the Ruins Town wouldn't have tolerated this guy for so long. After this period of rest, and with the help of a top-grade 5th-grade Great Recover pill, Wei Yidao had already completely recovered from his injuries. In his opinion, Ling Tianyu's injuries weren't any lighter than his own. Just now Ling Tianyu had tried to show off and sneak attacked a Golden Core Perfection Realm cultivator. Although Ling Tianyu had won, Ling Tianyu's recovery definitely wouldn't be faster than his. There was also Primordial Invincible. Although he didn't seem to have suffered many injuries when he was forced off the stage, he definitely wouldn't have had it so easy. In addition, if he challenged the Thousand Blades School and killed Ling Tianyu, it would be equivalent to directly winning 2 matches between the Foundation Establishment Realm and the Golden Core Realm. Primordial Invincible would be fine even if he was fine. In short, Wei Yidao had considerable confidence in challenging the Thousand Blades School again this time. He would be able to crush the Thousand Blades School. The people of the town of Ruins kept Wei Yidao's spiritual jades, and indicated to the great elder of the town of ruins that the number was correct. Only then did the great elder of the town of ruins open his mouth and say, Hegemon's Blade School versus the Thousand Blades School. The rules are the same as before. The first match between the Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. Begin. Without saying anything, Wei Yidao drew his saber and went up the stage. He pointed at Ling Tianyu and said, Brat, hurry up and come up to accept your death. If you want to say a few last words, I can be merciful and let you say a few more. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to do so in a while. Ling Tianyu could even kill a golden core late-stage expert in one blow. Why would he care about a mere Wei Yidao? Even if Lin Yi hadn't told him about the flaws, the two of them would still be evenly matched in a real fight. Hearing Wei Yidao's arrogant words, Ling Tianyu smiled indifferently and slowly walked up the stage. He said, Why are you in such a hurry? Are you rushing to reincarnate? You're courting death. Wei Yidao roared angrily. His long saber carried a cold light as he once again took the initiative to attack. Unfortunately, Ling Tianyu was waiting for him to make the first move. If Wei Yidao didn't move, how could Ling Tianyu find that flaw? Having experienced it once, he was even more familiar with it this time. The black dagger shot out like lightning and accurately hit the tip of the long saber. Wei Yidao was greatly shocked. Although he thought that Ling Tianyu had won the previous match by using some tricks, he was still on guard against this move of Ling Tianyu's. He didn't expect that no matter how much he guarded against it, he still couldn't block it. The moment the long saber shattered, Wei Yidao crushed a secret treasure hidden in his palm to create a temporary layer of defense for himself. The black dagger could ignore the saber power of the Hegemon's Blade School and could also penetrate the enemy's protective chi. However, it couldn't do anything to the defensive layer formed by this secret treasure. After a moment of stalemate in the air, Ling Tianyu directly called back the black dagger. Wei Yidao, is this what you're relying on? There is no chance of victory if you hide in a turtle shell. Ling Tianyu looked at Wei Yidao with a smile that wasn't a smile and mocked him faintly. Wei Yidao was a little arrogant, but he wasn't a fool. Since he was on guard against Ling Tianyu, how could he risk his life? Therefore, it wasn't surprising that he had such a defensive tool. In the defensive layer, Wei Yidao's face was extremely ugly. After personally experiencing it, he was sure that Ling Tianyu's instantaneous killing of a golden core late-stage expert was definitely not a trick, but a flaw in the Hegemon's Blade School. Chapter 5562. Ling Tianyu looked at the great elder of the ruins town. Seeing that the other party didn't say anything, he turned to Wei Yidao and said, Hey Wei Yidao, how long are you going to be a turtle? Are you going to fight or not? Don't waste time. Wei Yidao's body trembled slightly. He had wholeheartedly wanted to kill Ling Tianyu, using himself to push others. Ling Tianyu should also want to kill him, right? If they continued to fight, not only would he have no chance of winning, but his life would also be in danger. After all, this defense layer had a time limit. Once the time was up, there would be nothing left to save his life. I admit defeat. After thinking it through, Wei Yidao could only grit his teeth and admit defeat. Compared to his life, a little face was not a big deal. A trace of vague disdain flashed in the great elder's eyes. He was originally not satisfied with Wei Yidao, but now it turned into contempt. Hegemon Blade Sect versus Thousand Blades Sect. The first round, Thousand Blades Sect wins. Next, the second round. The great elder of the ruins town was too lazy to talk nonsense and directly announced the start of the second round. Wei Yidao jumped off the stage resentfully. He wanted to quickly tell the people in the sect what he had observed, so that his fellow gold core stage disciples wouldn't be defeated by Ling Tianyu again. However, Immemorial Invincible didn't give Wei Yidao the chance. He directly went up the stage and said, Just now, the battle between the Nascent Soul stage and the Foundation Establishment stage began. It's the same now. Wei Tianba, come up. Ling Tianyu tactfully left the stage. He also knew that Immemorial Invincible was holding back his anger. Previously, Wei Tianba used the illusion mirror to copy Immemorial Invincible and let him fight himself. As a result, He lost in a sullen manner. Now that he had a chance, of course, Immemorial Invincible would take revenge. As for whether Wei Tianba had another illusion mirror, Immemorial Invincible wasn't worried at all. That was an illusion mirror, not cabbages on the roadside. How could there be so many? Wei Tianba stood up with a gloomy face. Just now, Qingquan's sect gave him the illusion mirror, and there was indeed only one. If he could kill Immemorial Invincible, it would definitely be a huge profit. Unfortunately, Immemorial Invincible escaped at the last moment. Now Wei Tianba really didn't have any confidence in fighting Immemorial Invincible. However, Wei Tianba and Wei Yidao's thoughts were similar. Primeval Invincible might not have fully recovered from his injuries. If he were to fight now, he might be able to win. Most importantly, the Tyrant Blade School could not afford to lose again. If they lost again, they would completely lose the qualifications to be one of the 10 minor sections. According to the rules, the sects that fell out of the 10 minor sects only had one chance to challenge or gamble. If they lost, they could only wait for the next immemorial meeting. Otherwise, I can't let you challenge endlessly, right? After weighing the pros and cons, Wei Tianba braced himself and entered the arena. If Primeval Invincible's injuries hadn't healed yet, this would be his only chance to take advantage of the situation. Primordial Invincible sneered. Wei Tianba, you have guts. You actually dare to come up. Seeing that you have some guts, this old man will leave your corpse intact. The arrogance in Wei Tianba's heart was immediately ignited. No matter what, he was a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. Even if he was wary of Immemorial Invincible, he definitely wouldn't lower his head. What a coincidence! I like to cut my enemies into 8 pieces. It will be very difficult for you to leave your corpse intact. Wei Tianba said tit for tat. At the same time, he unsheathed his long saber and slashed at Primordial Invincible. Due to Ling Tianyou's 2 consecutive stunning performances, Wei Tianba didn't dare to use his saber right away. He could only use ordinary moves to test the waters. However, he didn't expect that Primordial Invincible didn't know about the Tyrant Blade School's flaws. After all, it was Lin Yi who told Ling Tianyu about it. Without Lin Yi's permission, Ling Tianyu didn't dare to tell others, even if that person was Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible laughed and said disdainfully, "You like to cut people into 8 pieces? It's not like I can't satisfy your wish. With your flowery but impractical moves, even 9 or 10 pieces are nothing to me." As he spoke, Primordial Invincible directly reached out to grab Wei Tianba's long saber. There were no fancy moves or changes. It was just a crushing suppression of strength. He was sure that Wei Tianba wouldn't be able to resist it. An invisible huge pressure instantly pressed down on Wei Tianba, causing his face to turn extremely pale. When he teamed up with Primordial Invincible's clone to deal with Primordial Invincible, he was completely in the supporting role. All the pressure and danger were all borne by the clone. Now that he was facing Primordial Invincible, he realized how big the gap between him and Primordial Invincible was. It was simply like heaven and earth. He was once the #1 nascent soul cultivator in the immemorial Jianghu. He wasn't just a joke. A mere mid-stage nascent soul cultivator was nothing in front of Primordial Invincible. Primordial Invincible simply reached out and grabbed the back of Wei Tianba's saber. With a simple twist, Wei Tianba's long saber broke from the hilt. The saber light rolled back without any hindrance. Wei Tianba's face had just revealed a horrified expression when his entire head flew into the sky. Without any warning, his body was cut into pieces of meat. Because of Primordial Invincible's Jinqi, no blood or internal organs flowed out. The cut was neat and smooth. Although it wasn't a bloody mess, it made people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. A peak nascent soul cultivator crushed a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator so easily. Primordial Invincible casually threw away the broken saber in his hand and said lightly, "I'm sorry, I cut a few more pieces. I couldn't fulfill your wish of cutting people into 8 pieces. I'll pay attention next time." The audience was speechless. He was already like this, and there was still a next time? After Primordial Invincible finished speaking, he turned to look at the great elder of Ruins Town, causing him to tremble. He quickly announced, The Tyrant's Blade sect has lost the challenge against the Thousand Blades sect. The rankings of both sides remain the same. As he spoke, the Great Elder of Ruins Town quietly took a few steps back. Although Primordial Invincible didn't have any killing intent, that kind of power was enough to make the Great Elder's heart go cold. Especially when he thought about how this old man was a mortal enemy of the Qingquan sect. He had to put more distance between them. Otherwise, Primordial Invincible would suddenly have a brain cramp and casually cut him into 8 pieces. Okay, 12 or 13 pieces. Fortunately, Primordial Invincible didn't pay attention to the Great Elder of Ruins Town. After hearing the result he wanted, he grunted and slowly left the arena. At this time, the audience gradually began to talk, but most of them were praising Primordial Invincible. His thunderous methods had clearly shocked the people from the small sections. Chapter 5563. Previously, the Six Directions sect and the Chu family had only fought one round before immediately giving up. It was obvious that they wanted to preserve their strength. Normally, they would definitely participate in the wagered battle to return to the top 10. However, the people of the Six Directions sect suddenly realized that they really had no opponents to challenge. The Thousand Blades sect only had 2 people? Don't joke around. Those 2 were ruthless people who could instantly kill their opponents of the same level. As for the Chu family, they had already admitted defeat. Why would they spend spiritual jade to be tortured? Seeing that the Leaf Spirit sect was the weakest, the Xuanji sect's sudden surrender made the Leaf Spirit sect feel somewhat unfathomable. There was only one chance, and they didn't have many spiritual jades. After thinking about it, the Six Directions sect almost chose to give up. In the end, they couldn't accept it, and chose the relatively weaker Okuda family as their opponent. In terms of ranking, the Okuda family and the Six Directions sect were almost equal. In terms of strength, they were slightly stronger than the Six Directions sect. Under normal circumstances, the Six Directions sect didn't want to challenge the Okuda family, but they really had no other choice now. In the first 2 matches, the Foundation Establishment stage and the Golden Core stage, both sides were tied. Finally, in the Nascent Soul stage, the Okuda clan won and had the last laugh. Not only did they keep their spot in the 10 small ones, but they also received a prize of 1,000 spiritual jades. The Six Directions faction, on the other hand, had to leave in dejection. They could only wait for the next immemorial meeting to make a comeback. The qualification challenge of the top 10 has ended. We are very happy to see new faces enter the top 10. But we are also very sorry that some old friends have to leave temporarily. However, the gathering will continue. Next is the ranking battle of the top 10. After the battle between the Okuda family and the Six Directions sect, the Great Elder of Ruins Town regained his confidence as the host. With a few simple words, he began the ranking battle of the top 10. Everyone knows that the ranking of the 10 minor sects is very important. It concerns the allocation of resources every year. The higher the ranking, the more resources you will receive. Moreover, there is an even more special meaning today, and that is the qualification to challenge the Big Four. If you think your sect has the strength to enter the Big Four, then you must perform well and fight for first place in the 10 minor sects. Then you can challenge the Big Four. The Great Elder of Ruins Town said with a rare smile. Clearly, he was just saying it. He didn't really think that any sect could challenge the top 4. After all, the 10 primordial beasts only had the right to receive the distribution of resources in the primordial mountain range, and the ones who distributed these resources to them were the 4 great beasts. From this, one could clearly see the huge difference in the ratio of resources obtained by both sides. Without the support of resources, how could the 10 minor beasts develop and challenge the Big Four? What's more, the top 10 disciples were basically all from the Qingquan sect, so there was no need to worry about challenges. Of course, in addition to the distribution of resources according to the ranking, the 4 great sects would also distribute some resources to their own sects in private. This was also why the Qingquan sect was the strongest. It was because the Qingquan sect itself was the sect that received the most resources. Alright, back to the main topic. I believe that everyone is getting impatient. The first competition of the year will depend on the contribution of each sect. After all, resources are limited. Sects that don't contribute are not qualified to be allocated resources. Therefore, the next competition will be the gathering of spiritual jades. This is a new project, so listen carefully to the rules. The great elder of the ruins town didn't continue with the nonsense and directly threw out the first competition. The freshly minted 10 minor beasts also pricked up their ears and listened carefully. The mining of spiritual jades was something that happened once a year, but it was the first time it was used as a competition. Therefore, the 10 minor beasts were very attentive. Everyone knows that the spiritual jades in the primordial underworld are relatively scarce. The spiritual jade vein in the primordial mountain range produces the most. However, there is a limit to the spiritual jade vein. It can only be mined once a year, and only 20 people can enter each time. The time limit is also only 10 days. In the past, the 10 minor beasts sent their own people to mine, and the harvest was basically the same. Therefore, this time, after discussion, the big four great beasts decided to use this as the first competition. Before the great elder of the ruins town explained the rules, he couldn't help but explain it first, in case the 10 minor beasts had any doubts. This time, the 10 minor beasts will send 2 people each. Each person will have a special void bag. No fighting is allowed. They will enter the spiritual jade vein to mine spiritual jades. The one who mines the most spiritual jades will win. The points will also be from 10 to 1, which will be added to the sect's score. Isn't it simple? The great elder of the ruins town glanced in the direction of the Blue Clouds sect and smiled. Originally, this competition was designed to be fought over the void bags at the last moment. However, considering that the Blue Clouds sect's strength was somewhat strange and unpredictable, Sage Du Jia suggested to cancel the snatching part and let the 10 minor beasts mine the spiritual jades in peace. Perhaps that would be able to limit the Blue Clouds sect's score. As for the void bag, it was a primordial tool controlled by the Archaic Alliance. It could store an unlimited amount of spiritual jades. Although it wasn't something that could be seen everywhere in the archaic underworld, the Big Four still had a lot of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to take out 20 of them at once. After listening to Xanijia's explanation of the void bag, Lin Yi was secretly amazed. The archaic underworld was indeed unique. At least on the Heaven Stage Island, he had never heard of a treasure like the void bag. In fact, there were very few secret treasures and tools from the archaic underworld on the Heaven Stage Island. The development of the two places was indeed completely different. Grand Master, after the spiritual jades are stored in the void bag, we can't take it out anymore. We can only open it after we come out, and the Archaic Alliance uses a special method. So in the spiritual jade vein, it's useless to snatch other people's void bags. What the Big Four want is for us, the 10 minor beasts, to work hard, and then take out a part of it to distribute to the 10 minor beasts. Although it's called resource distribution, it's actually a reward. After following Lin Yi, Xanijia was no longer short of spiritual jades. Therefore, when talking about the mining of spiritual jades, there was a disdainful look on his face. What he didn't know was that the Qingquan sect originally wanted the 10 minor beasts to fight over the void bags on the last day. Although they couldn't open the bags, the more they had, the more spiritual jades they took out. It was because they were afraid of the Blue Clouds sect that they finally cancelled this rule. Chapter 5564. Genius in a Second. Remember Love Go? To provide you with exciting novels to read. Xanijia thought about it, and felt that it made sense. He nodded in admiration. Grandmaster, you're so insightful. By the way, why don't I bring Jin Weifeng along? With our strength, it's not a problem to enter the top 3. Lin Yi understood that Xanijia felt that hard work like mining spiritual jade was not suitable for Lin Yi as a Grand Master. Hence, he suggested that he and Jin Weifeng go together. However, Lin Yi wanted to see what the spiritual jade immortal vein looked like and how the void bag worked. Hence, he rejected Xanijia's suggestion after some thought. I'd like to see it myself this time. Ijia, You don't have to go. Stay here and look after it. I'll go with Jin Weifeng. Lin Yi paused and continued. Although it's useless to rob someone's void bag, would it be a problem to kill someone inside? Xianijia's expression suddenly changed. He really did not think about this. The great elder of Ruined Town did not say anything about this. He only said that no one was allowed to snatch the void bag. Although the Archaic Alliance wanted to collect more spiritual jades, if someone killed someone in the void bag for the sake of hindering others, the Archaic Alliance might not be able to stop it. My score is not high. It's okay, as long as others don't get any points. Grandmaster, why don't I go with you? Just let Weifeng stay outside. Xianijia wanted Jin Weifeng to stay behind when he thought of this possibility. Lin Yi smiled and looked at Xianijia. Are you worried that something will happen to me, or that I can't take care of Weifeng, and something will happen to him? Xianijia's face turned red. Given Lin Yi's skills, the other 9 sects might not be able to do anything to him even if they joined hands. Jin Weifeng might be safer if he followed Lin Yi than if he stayed outside. Not to mention that some of the 10 small sects were allied with them. The Soaring Heaven sect, the Snow Sword faction, the Leaf Spirit sect, the Thousand Blades faction, the Chu clan, and the Azure Cloud sect itself made up 6 of the 10 minor sections. If they didn't go looking for trouble with others, they would already be laughing. Who would be so blind as to provoke the Azure Cloud sect? The great elder of the ruined town pointed at the 20 void bags he had prepared and said, Does everyone understand now? If there's no problem, bring everyone who's going to mine the spirit jade here. Everyone will get a void pouch, and prepare to head to the spirit jade immortal vein. It's settled then. Weifeng, you're coming with me to do 10 days of hard labor. Lin Yi chuckled as he turned to Jin Weifeng beside him. Jin Weifeng giggled and said, Following martial grand uncle is a great blessing. How is there such a thing as hard labor? As they spoke, the 10 participants of this project went up to collect their void bags. Lin Yi looked around and saw quite a few familiar faces. The Snow Sword sect had Bing Wuqing and sect master Hong Qingyuan. The Chu family had Chu Yuntian and Chu Yunting. The Thousand Blades sect had no choice, only Primordial Invincible and Ling Tianyu. The Leaf Spirit sect had sect master Yi Qingqing and Duanmuyu's master Yi Tongxian. And the Grand Elder Yi Yixing didn't come, probably still recovering from his injuries. There was also Evil Warding sect's Zhao Dan, whom Lin Yi knew, but he avoided Lin Yi's eyes. He didn't want to have anything to do with Lin Yi. Yin Qingqing's death didn't seem to have spread. Otherwise, there would be people who would challenge the Evil Warding sect. Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng were the last to get the void pouches. And Lin Yi only nodded to the people he knew with his eyes. He didn't say much, as everyone had a tacit understanding that they'd take care of each other after going in. Lin Yi held the void bag and used his divine sense to check it, but was blocked by an invisible force. It should be what Xianijia said before, a secret technique set up by the Archaic Alliance. Other than them, no one else could open the void bag and take out the things inside. Of course, if Lin Yi wanted to, he could break it by force. However, it wasn't necessary. Alright, since all the void bags have been taken, let's get ready to teleport to the Lingyu celestial vein. The great elder of the ruined town glanced at Lin Yi and announced the start of the teleportation. The tribulation-conquering immortal stood up and signaled the rest of the nascent soul realm cultivators to disperse. On the jade discs behind them, complicated formation patterns were lighting up. This was the teleportation formation that the 4 major sects had set up to enter the Lingyu celestial vein. However, it wouldn't go directly to the Lingyu celestial vein. There would be a transfer point. Without a special method, even if someone could replicate this temporary formation, they wouldn't be able to enter the Lingyu celestial vein. After the teleportation formation was completely activated, the tribulation-conquering immortal said to the 20 children, Please enter the teleportation formation in order. Only one person can pass at a time. The destination is random. Therefore, you may not meet people from your own sect. Everyone should know this, so don't worry. As long as you collect enough spiritual jades to make the void bag shine, you can be teleported back at any time. Of course, if someone is unlucky and can't collect enough spiritual jades, He will be teleported out after 10 days. After that, the sects under the Qianquan sect rushed up and prepared to be teleported. The sects under the Five Elements sect followed closely, as if the first one to enter would benefit. Lenny frowned slightly. He didn't care about the benefits after going in. The key was that the teleportation was random. If Jin Weifeng went in, it would be safer than Xianijia. After all, Xianijia was at the peak of the nascent soul realm. He was strong enough to go in alone. Jin Weifeng had been paying attention to Lin Yi. Seeing Lin Yi frown, he could more or less understand Lin Yi's thoughts. Jin Weifeng said in a low voice, "Martial Granduncle, we won't be together after we go in. However, I am not weak. There are not many people who can threaten me. Plus, I have many allies. It should be easy for me to find you." "You are right. This is a rare opportunity for you to practice. If you follow me all the time, you won't have the chance to practice." Lin Yi nodded. He felt that he was thinking too much. With Jin Weifeng's strength, he could still protect himself. While they were talking, Shengguan Qingyun stood in front of the teleportation formation and said to the tribulation-conquering immortal, "Tribulation-conquering immortal, is it inappropriate for all the disciples of the Qianquan sect to be teleported first? Why don't we do it according to the previous ranking of the 10 children?" Chapter 55-65. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go, let's provide you with wonderful novels to read. According to the previous rules, the sects and families under the 4 big sects would be sent first. In other words, the sects and families under the Qianquan sect would be the first, the 5 Elements sect would be the second, the Heaven's Enlightenment faction would be the third, and the Shangguan clan would be the last. The great elder of the ruins town said that every sect's harvest was about the same, but it was complete nonsense. Of course, there were rich and poor veins in the spirit jade celestial vein, and even the waste veins. The location of the teleportation was indeed random, but the first one to be sent would have a high chance of being sent to the region where the rich vein was located. The later the teleportation, the smaller the harvest would be. There were only 10 days in total. If they were sent to the waste vein, they would have to look for another vein to mine, which would undoubtedly waste a lot of time. Shengguan Qingyun understood this, so he came out to argue. Since the ranking of the top 10 doesn't count, why don't we use the new basic ranking of the 4 big sects? Shengguan Qingyun seemed to have expected Tribulation Crossing Sage's answer, so he immediately proposed a new plan. Based on the current ranking of the 4 big sects, the Shangguan clan was no longer the youngest. Tribulation Crossing Sage didn't answer Shengguan Qingyun directly, but turned to ask the 5 Elements sect and the Heaven's Enlightenment faction. Without a doubt, these 2 sects agreed to maintain the original status. After all, in the new ranking, the Shangguan clan would be stepping on their shoulders. Shengguan Qingyun was speechless. He had forgotten that although the current plan was the most beneficial to the Qianquan sect, the other 2 sects weren't bad either. There was no reason for them to sacrifice their own interests to help the Shengguan clan, right? Since there are no objections, let's continue. Tribulation Crossing Sage smiled at Shengguan Qingyun, then waved his hand to signal the Qianquan sect to go ahead. Shengguan Qingyun looked at Lin Yi helplessly. Originally, he wanted to fight for a better position for Lin Yi and the others, but now it seemed like there was no other way. However, Shengguan Qingyun didn't care too much. In his opinion, the Blue Cloud sect becoming one of the 4 big sects was already unstoppable. It wasn't a big deal to give up a mere spiritual jade mining project. Lin Yi didn't mind. Although he didn't know the details, he still nodded at Shengguan Qingyun, indicating that he didn't have to worry too much. The speed of the teleportation was very fast. After one teleported in, the next teleported in a flash of light. In just a few breaths worth of time, most of the 20 people had left, leaving only Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng, and the Thousand Blades faction's invincible primordial spirit Tianyu. Tianyu, why don't you not participate in the spiritual jade gathering this time? Primordial Invincible whispered worriedly. Clearly Primordial Invincible had also thought about it. Given Ling Tianyu's strength, It was very likely that he would be killed in the spirit jade immortal vein. Lin indicated for Jin Weifeng to teleport first. Then he said to Ling Tianyu, "It will indeed be somewhat dangerous for you to enter. This time, the people inside aren't just people from the Tyrant's Blade Gate. Any one of them can instantly kill you. If you can't find me or your undefeatable patriarch immediately, it will be very troublesome." Ling Tianyu, on the other hand, shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly. He even chuckled and said, "You guys can't see clearly because you are closely involved. Among those who enter, who dares to make a move against me? Aren't they afraid of being annihilated? Without me as a burden, my undefeatable patriarch will be more flexible." What he said was indeed reasonable. Without Ling Tianyu as a burden, Primordial Invincible could completely become a hidden killer. Not to mention the Qingquan sect of the 10 minor sects. Even the Qingquan sect, with the exception of Taoist Du Nan, would be in a state of chaos because of Primordial Invincible Patriarch. Primordial Invincible Patriarch laughed heartily. He was truly relieved. Therefore, he no longer tried to persuade Ling Tianyu. Instead, he directly asked Lin Yi to teleport first while he and Ling Tianyu followed behind. Lin Yi did not stand on ceremony. He nodded and entered the teleportation formation. A wave of dizziness came over him, as if he had entered a closed space. Immediately after, a light flashed, and he felt the teleportation again. When he stabilized, Lin Yi had already appeared in an empty mineral vein. It's really a treasure house. Looking around, Lin Yi could not help but laugh. He did not know if Du Nan and the others had secretly manipulated the place where Lin Yi was teleported to. The place where he was teleported was completely a waste mineral vein. Within the range of his divine sense, there was not a single piece of good spiritual jade. However, that was only for others. For Lin Yi, this place was almost the same as a treasure house. Because the ground was full of waste jades with no spiritual power fluctuations, there was no need to mine them at all. He could just throw them into the space of the jade pendant to recharge them. After 10 days, all the waste jades here were properly best-grade spiritual jades. Originally, Lin Yi thought that if there was no other way, he could take out some of the spiritual jades from the space of the jade pendant. Now it seemed that there was no need for that. As he walked, he kept all the waste jades on the ground into the space of the jade pendant. As for the waste jades that needed to be mined, Lin Yi was too lazy to do it. He estimated that there were at least 50 to 60,000 pieces of waste jades on the ground. This number of waste jades spread on the ground. It seemed that someone had been mining here for a long time. However, in the end there was no harvest. Looking at the waste jades all over the ground, Lin Yi could imagine the bitter face of the person who mined it. "This time my luck is good. I finished mining the spiritual jades when I came in. Now, it's time to find Jin Weifeng and the others. I don't know where they have been teleported to." Lin Yi walked aimlessly along the direction of the vein. In this spirit jade immortal vein, Lin Yi's spiritual sense was suppressed. There was no way for him to explore far. The rock walls were at most 5 to 6 meters deep. It was no problem for him to look at the spiritual jades. Other than that, it was useless. After walking for a while, there was a fork in the road. Lin Yi looked left and right. There was nothing different. He randomly picked a direction and continued to walk down. However, when Lin Yi walked 100 steps in this direction, the jade pendant suddenly issued a warning. This situation had not happened for a long time. Lin Yi was shocked. He subconsciously flew back and instantly returned to the fork. What's going on? When he returned to the fork, the jade pendant did not respond. Lin Yi looked out and did not find anything unusual. Could it be that the jade pendant had made a mistake? This kind of thing had never happened before. Of course, Lin Yi would not really think that the jade pendant would make a mistake. Although he could not see it, there was definitely some danger there. Chapter 5566. Reeks, interesting. I thought you were just here to mine. I didn't expect there to be such an interesting thing. Lin Yi pinched his chin and smiled. Neither his eyes nor his divine sense found anything unusual. Because of this, Lin Yi's interest was greatly increased. Danger often came with opportunities. At this time, if Azure Dragon was here, he might be able to see some clues. Even Jiao Yazi could provide some advice. Unfortunately, Azure Dragon did not follow him here. Jiao Yazi could still speak in the secular world, but in the ancient small world, there was no movement. Lin Yi could only judge the situation by himself. After raising his vigilance, Lin Yi walked in again step by step. He slowly approached the previous position and extended his divine sense to the limit. At the same time, he paid close attention to the changes in the space of the jade pendant. Strange. Was it really a mistake just now? After arriving at the previous position, there was no abnormal phenomenon. Lin Yi muttered to himself. His body slowly relaxed from a highly alert state and returned to its previous relaxed state. Just at the moment when Lin Yi relaxed, an invisible attack appeared strangely behind Lin Yi. It seemed that Lin Yi had calculated all the angles that Lin Yi could dodge. Haha, it really came out. Lin Yi seemed to have relaxed his vigilance. In fact, he was only relaxed on the outside but tense on the inside. When the attack came, Lin Yi directly changed into the state of the primordial spirit and let the attack pass through his incorporeal body. The Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm also followed the path of the attack and hit back. Unfortunately, this palm did not hit any enemy. In the end, it only hit a few pieces of ore. Hey, it's really fast. Lin Yi condensed his primordial spirit again and looked at the small hole made by the Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm with slight surprise. His divine sense covered every inch of the space around him. Yu-1. When he was attacked just now, Lin Yi's divine sense finally saw what sneak attacked him. It was a spirit beast about 1 meter long. It looked like a pangolin, but Lin Yi clearly knew that it was definitely not a pangolin. Although he had never seen it before, when he was in the Blue Cloud sect, Lin Yi happened to read the name of this spirit beast. Spirit-eating beast. The introduction of the spirit-eating beast was also very simple. Found in the spirit jade vein. Feeds on spiritual power. Ferocious and likes to kill. Good at hiding, good at escaping through the earth. When thinking about this, Lin Yi couldn't help but furrow his brows. From what he had observed with his divine sense, that spirit-eating beast was only at the early stage of the nascent soul realm. If it was just one spirit-eating beast, as long as he was vigilant, it wouldn't be a big problem. However, spirit-eating beasts never lived alone. If there was one, there would definitely be a second. If these two had already given birth, there would be a third and fourth. Lin Yi felt helpless when facing this spirit-eating beast. If Jin Weifeng, or even Ling Tianyu were to encounter a spirit-eating beast, they would be caught off guard and would be ambushed by it. What are the 4 big sects and clans doing? Don't they know that there are spirit-eating beasts in the ghost spirit jade immortal vein? Or are they trying to weaken the strength of the 10 juveniles so that they won't be able to threaten the 4 big sects? If that's the case, the Shangguan clan should have told me about it. Lin Yi thought to himself. He had to find Jin Weifeng and the others as soon as possible. Right now, Lin Yi really wanted to ask someone if there were any serious casualties when he was collecting the spirit jades. However, even if there were, it would be considered as an internal conflict between the 10 juveniles and used to cover up the existence of the spirit-eating beast. Yu too. Lin Yi's mind was spinning rapidly, but he didn't let his guard down. After knowing that it was a spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him, Lin Yi didn't dare be careless anymore. After all, it was a spirit-eating beast, but it wouldn't be the only one. The damnable thing was that not only did the spirit-eating beast know earth movement techniques, but it also knew concealment techniques. Even Lin Yi's divine sense could only capture the spirit-eating beast's movements the instant it launched its attack, let alone his naked eye. Lin Yi was feeling a little helpless against an enemy like this. A divine sense attack suddenly descended from above, approaching Lin Yi's head in an instant. At the same time, a spiritual attack struck Lin Yi's back like a poisonous snake, aiming straight for Lin Yi's heart. 2 spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't panic in the slightest. As he transformed into his soul form again, 3 divine sense vortexes appeared out of thin air, surrounding the spirit-eating beast behind him. When he transformed into his soul form, the divine sense attack would deal the most damage to Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi had the divine controlling bracelet, So he didn't take this divine sense attack to heart. Instead, he took the opportunity to grab a spirit-eating beast and beat it to death. If it weren't for the fact that the soul-hooking palm took a little more time to release than the divine sense vortexes, Lenny would have immediately used the soul-hooking palm. The spirit-eating beast was simply too fast, and Lenny didn't dare to let go of even the slightest delay. Sure enough, he caught the spirit-eating beast that was ambushing him from behind. UU3. Under the pull of the consciousness whirlpool, the soul-eating beast let out a pained howl, and the other soul-eating beasts rushed out, attacking Lin Yi without a care for anything else. Lin Yi had the protection of the divine controlling bracelet, and after blocking the initial divine sense attack, he transformed back into his soul form again, unleashing a 5-elemental killing intent toward the spirit-eating beast above. For a time, they were evenly matched. This was also because the spirit-eating beast above was only at the peak of the golden core stage and hadn't reached the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's soul only at the perfected foundation establishment stage, even his 5-elemental killing intent wouldn't be enough to contend with the nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast. The soul-eating beast that was trapped in the consciousness whirlpool suddenly roared, opening its mouth to spit out an extremely condensed beam of light. Lin Yi was shocked. He didn't need the jade to warn him. Just the aura alone was enough to tell him how dangerous this beam of light was. Even if he turned into his soul form, he would still be fatally injured. Lin Yi suddenly had this realization in his heart, and he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He crazily used the extreme butterfly microsteps and continuously swayed back. It was not easy for him to avoid the pursuit of this beam of light. When he looked up again, the two spirit-eating beasts had already disappeared. What a powerful spirit-eating beast! Lin Yi's face was solemn. The spirit-eating beast's outburst just now was probably a life-saving trump card. But in any case, this spirit-eating beast was an extremely dangerous existence, especially for Ling Tianyu, a cultivator at the perfected foundation establishment stage. A casual claw could easily end him. Chapter 55-67. Returning to the battle site, there was still no trace of the spirit-eating beast, nor was there any more attacks from the spirit-eating beast. Lin Yi estimated that the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast had injured its foundation, plus Lin Yi's divine sense whirlpool was not for nothing. At this moment, the early nascent soul stage spirit-eating beast should have been seriously injured. If he had the time, Lin Yi really wanted to find the soul-eating beast's lair. This kind of soul-eating beast fed on spirit jades, and it was said that there would be good stuff in their lair. Unfortunately, Ling Tianyu's group's safety was the most important thing right now, and Lin Yi couldn't stay here any longer. Since he couldn't find the soul-eating beast, he might as well stay alert and speed up. With Lin Yi's speed, if he really ran at full speed, he could break the speed of sound. After a while, he had already run hundreds of kilometers away, but because of the twists and turns, the straight line was not too far from the previous battle site. What made Lin Yi feel strange was that along the way, there were basically some waste or poor veins. Why did the two spirit-eating beasts go there? With the nature of spirit-eating beasts, they wouldn't even look at a rich vein. In other words, there was something hidden in that area that could attract the soul-eating beasts. Lin Yi felt that after finding Ling Tianyu and the others, he'd have to come back and take a look when he had the time. As mentioned before, danger and opportunity always went hand in hand. At this moment, Lin Yi heard the faint sound of fighting. In the spirit jade immortal vein, not only was divine sense suppressed, but true chi fluctuations were also absorbed. On the contrary, the transmission of sound was not restricted. Lin Yi immediately ran towards the place where the sound came from. No matter who was fighting, it was a good thing to be able to find the person first. After approaching, Lin Yi found that it was Yi Qingqing of Yi Ling's sect and Yin Feiyang of Yin Yun's sect fighting. Obviously, it was for a rich vein on the side. This was the first time Lin Yi had seen a rich vein after traveling so far. Although it was not a lot, one person could mine it for 7 to 8 days without stopping. It was more than enough to complete the quest. However, if two people worked together, it would only take 3 to 4 days. After that, they would have to search for other rich veins. It was no wonder that the two would fight over it. The void bag could not be robbed, and it would be useless. However, before the spiritual jades were put into the void bag, they were ownerless. Whoever could put them into their void bag would own them. They did not know where the next rich vein would be. If they did not rob it now, when would they? Linny was also speechless. There were at least 2 spirit-devouring beasts nearby. Were they really not afraid of being eaten by the spirit-devouring beasts as snacks? Stop! Linny immediately shouted after appearing. The 2 of them were evenly matched, and neither had the upper hand. When they discovered that someone was interfering, they immediately stopped and retreated at almost the same time. When Yi Qingqing saw that the person who had arrived was Lin Yi, his face immediately lit up with joy. He smiled and greeted, "Master Lin, what a coincidence! You're also nearby." Lin Yi nodded at Yi Qingqing and said, "Sect Master Yi, did you see Ling Tianyu of the Thousand Blades sect and Jin Weifeng of our Blue Cloud sect?" Yi Qingqing shook his head and said, "I didn't. After this junior teleported here, I only saw this guy. He is Yin Feiyang of the Cloud Guide sect. The Cloud Guide sect is a subordinate sect of the Qingquan sect. It seems that every time the Qingquan sect's subordinate sect teleports to the vicinity of the rich vein, so this junior couldn't help but make a move." Yin Feiyang took a step back and looked at Lin Yi and Yi Qingqing with a vigilant expression. Yi Qingqing alone was enough to give him a headache. Now that Yi Qingqing had to call himself a junior, Yin Feiyang obviously could not fight them alone. Lin Yi looked at Yin Feiyang with an indifferent expression. He didn't have any special thoughts about the Cloud Guide sect, and he had never had any dealings with them before. Therefore, he couldn't just kill Yin Feiyang, just because he was a subordinate sect of the Qingquan sect. In fact, the Snow Sword faction was also a subordinate sect of the Qingquan sect. Previously, Yu Taizong and his group were more familiar with the Qingquan sect, but now that it was Bing Wuqing, the relationship between the Snow Sword faction and the Qingquan sect had become much weaker. If not for the fact that Lin Yi didn't ask the Snow Sword faction to join the Shangguan clan, and Bing Wuqing didn't want to do anything, the Snow Sword faction wouldn't have become a subordinate sect of the Qingquan sect. What's the point of you two fighting each other? There are so many spiritual jades here. Even if both of you mine them together, it will still take you 3 to 4 days to mine them all. If you have the time, why don't you get some more spiritual jades and find another place to mine them? Lin Yi didn't want to get involved in the dispute between the two, so he just tried to persuade them. To be honest, the amount of spiritual jades in this section of the rich vein was much less than the amount of wasted spiritual jades Lin Yi had just collected. It would be great if they could mine around 8 to 10,000 spiritual jades, and that was why Lin Yi didn't care about it at all. Yi Qingqing didn't expect Lin Yi to say something like this. When he saw Lin Yi, he thought he had found a powerful ally, and that the Cloud Guide sect wouldn't have a share in this rich vein. However, it seemed like Lin Yi didn't want any spiritual jades at all. If the Blue Cloud sect didn't mine the spiritual jades after entering the Spirit Jade Immortal vein, it meant that the Blue Cloud sect didn't want to be ranked among the top 10 small sects. Of course, Lin Yi wouldn't explain that he didn't want to mine these spiritual jades. He still kept his divine sense spread out to the maximum range, just in case the soul-eating beasts decided to attack again without any preparation. However, the soul-eating beasts didn't notice anything, but Lin Yi noticed that someone was rushing toward them from another direction. It was the other supreme elder of the Ying Cloud sect, Zhou Baixiang, a peak mid-nascent soul realm cultivator. Lin Yi's eyes flickered. Teleporting randomly, the two of them were actually in the same area, and they were even approaching each other. It was impossible that they didn't have any special methods to do this. Did they have some way to sense each other's location? Or did they have some way to directly communicate with each other? Yin Feiyang seemed to have also sensed Zhou Baixiang's arrival. After turning around to make sure, his face immediately lit up with joy, as if he had found a pillar of support. "Supreme Elder, I'm here." Yin Feiyang waved his hand in greeting, then turned to Lin Yi and said, "You're called Lin Yi, right? I advise you to mind your own business. This is a matter between the Ying Cloud sect and the Leaf Spirit sect. In other words, it's a matter between the Qianquan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect. Your Azure Cloud sect shouldn't get involved. Linny raised his brows and said with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. Oh, you think I'm meddling? To be honest, I hate meddling the most. However, if you're talking about the Qianquan sect and the Heaven Awakening sect, then it doesn't seem like it's meddling anymore. Should I meddle? Chapter 5568. Linny ignored him and turned his head to the other side. He had to admit that this part of the vein was located in a passageway that extended in all directions. It was easy for people to find it, and he didn't know how it had been preserved until now. Rainin. This time, when Linny discovered that the person who came was actually Jin Weifeng, it was really a pleasant surprise. At least it saved Linny a lot of time searching. Master Uncle, this is great. Disciple's luck is really good to find Master Uncle so quickly. Jin Weifeng saw Linny and immediately ran over with a smile. Humph, 2 newly advanced nascent soul cultivators, and a so-called Master Uncle who popped out of nowhere. Do you think that Blue Cloud sect can rise again? I don't know if those sects are stupid. Why didn't they challenge your Blue Cloud sect? Maybe if they challenge you, Blue Cloud sect will directly fall from the top 10. Zhou Baixiang saw that Linny ignored him, and he did not know why, but a burst of anger emerged in his heart. A prideful person would never be able to tolerate being ignored by others. Linny continued to ignore Zhou Baixiang and smiled at Jin Weifeng. I am relieved to see you. Did you encounter any danger? Did you see Ling Tianyu and the others? No, I didn't encounter any danger, and I didn't see Ling Tianyu and the others. Jin Weifeng laughed and said, I didn't find any spiritual jades either. Along the way, there were only waste veins. It was not easy to find a place with abundant spiritual energy, but I didn't expect there to be so many people here. Zhou Baixiang's face was already a bit black. Now, not only was Linny ignoring him, even that kid from Blue Cloud sect was ignoring him. It was really intolerable. Linny pointed at the rich vein and said, There are a lot of spiritual jades here, but they found it first. I was just persuading them not to fight over it and mine it together. Yin Feiyang sneered and said, I found it first, why should I mine with him? If you know what's good for you, scram. Don't think that you are awesome because you have more people. Our Yin sect is least afraid of numbers. Oh, what a big tone. My martial grand uncle is giving you face by persuading you. Old man, you don't even want face. Come, let me see how much weight you have. Jin Weifeng was unhappy. In his mind, Linny was a godlike existence. How could he allow himself to be humiliated by mere people from the Cloud Guide sect? But after saying that, Jin Weifeng immediately turned around and asked Linny, Martial uncle, can this disciple teach this old man a lesson? Of course, Linny would not object. The reason he brought Jin Weifeng here was to give him a chance to gain experience. Yin Feiyang was a suitable whetstone. The two of them were equal in strength. Jin Weifeng lacked experience, but Yin Feiyang had just fought with Yi Qingsheng. The two of them were about the same. Go. The Yin sect isn't afraid of numbers. They're afraid of having too few people. So, you should be fine by yourself. Linny made a rare joke. Jin Weifeng and Yi Qingsheng both smiled knowingly, but the two people from the Yin sect became even more furious. Yin Feiyang did not say anything. When he saw Jin Weifeng come out, he immediately opened the fan in his hand. After pouring his true qi into it, he waved it with all his strength. For a moment, wind and water rose and a mist filled the air. Jin Weifeng unsheathed his long sword, and the sword light flashed, cutting the mist that Yin Feiyang had sent out into several areas. Then, under Yin Feiyang's horrified gaze, Jin Weifeng's sword went straight for the vital point on Yin Feiyang's chest. What a fast sword! Yin Feiyang was shocked, but he did not dare to be careless. He closed his fan and the fan blade, which was made of black steel, slashed across the vital point of his chest. Originally, he had wanted to block the tip of the sword, but Jin Weifeng's sword was too fast. The tip of the sword could not block it, and could only hit the body of the sword, causing it to deviate slightly. A drop of blood splashed through the air from the tip of the sword. Although it was not a serious injury, It was enough to make Yin Fei Yang's heart go cold. Jin Weifeng was just an unknown disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, but he was able to injure him in one move. When Jin Weifeng grew up, how terrifying would he be? Jin Weifeng's sword did not contain any killing intent, so after it was deflected by Yin Fei Yang, it only hurt Yin Fei Yang a little. But Yin Fei Yang had already figured out Jin Weifeng's strength. Although they were both at the early nascent soul stage, Jin Weifeng's combat ability was clearly higher than Yin Fei Yang's. Zhou Baixiang saw this scene and frowned slightly. His face was as gloomy as water. Originally, he thought that the Blue Cloud sect's nascent soul stage cultivators had just advanced, so their combat ability was definitely not that good. He did not expect things to be completely different from what he thought. Jin Weifeng was also a little excited at this moment. This was his first time fighting with a nascent soul stage cultivator other than Xianijia. After his sword was deflected, Jin Weifeng took the opportunity to sweep across, and at the same time, he also used a low-level martial skill. Although Yin Fei Yang was shocked, he did not panic. After all, he was a veteran nascent soul stage cultivator. With just a few steps, he dodged Jin Weifeng's sword attack. Then he continued to attack, defending against Jin Weifeng's attack, while waiting for an opportunity to counterattack. Yi Qingcheng, who was on the side, was a little stunned. He and Yin Fei Yang were evenly matched. How did Jin Weifeng gain the upper hand as soon as he went up? If that was the case, wasn't Jin Weifeng stronger than him? However, thinking that Jin Weifeng was someone who followed Lin Yi, it did not seem strange for him to have such a performance. The two people who were fighting released martial skills continuously. For a moment, the sword chi was everywhere, and the clouds were lingering. However, it did not last long. Soon the winner was decided between the two of them. Yin Fei Yang was hit continuously. Fortunately, they were only punches and kicks. There were no fatal injuries, but he looked a little embarrassed. Jin Weifeng pointed his sword at Yin Fei Yang's throat and laughed. How about it? Are you convinced now that the Blue Cloud sect is not to be trifled with? The Blue Cloud sect is not to be trifled with. Do you think that the Yin sect is to be trifled with? Zhou Baixiang suddenly shouted. He reached out and slapped Jin Weifeng's chest. With his peak nascent soul stage strength, if he hit Jin Weifeng, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Lin Yi's eyes turned cold. He was about to attack, but after seeing Jin Weifeng's calm face, he suddenly changed his mind. Since he wanted to sharpen his sword, he might as well use a better whetstone. Yin Fei Yang did not seem to be qualified, so this Zhou Baixiang might be a good whetstone. After Zhou Baixiang, would Jin Weifeng's future Blue Cloud sword shine differently? Chapter 5569. Reeks. Sink the tip of the sword 3 inches. Shift it 1 inch to the right. Strike in an arc. Just as Jin Weifeng felt that he could not deal with it, Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Out of respect and trust towards Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng did not think and subconsciously followed Lin Yi's instructions. The long sword, which seemed to have sunk into a swamp, suddenly smoothly broke through Zhou Baixiang's Jin Qi and penetrated through it without any hindrance. In the blink of an eye, it had already reached the dead angle of Zhou Baixiang's armpit, causing Zhou Baixiang to break out in cold sweat. 9 illusory cloud body. This was the highest level movement technique of the Yin sect. Zhou Baixiang naturally used it with ease. Although Jin Weifeng's sword was unexpectedly fast and unavoidable, it completely missed in front of the 9 illusory cloud body. Jin Weifeng's experience in fighting was indeed not rich enough. When he thought that his sword would definitely hit, he was immediately startled. In a fight between experts, how could such a mistake be tolerated? Moreover, Jin Weifeng's strength was much weaker than Zhou Baixiang's. Zhou Baixiang seized the opportunity to launch a counterattack, a martial technique, coming from a tricky angle. Lin Yi continued to use his qi to quickly transmit. Take a step forward. Backhand release vacuum sword wave to the right rear. Left hand release rocket-like cannon fist to the right front. What Lin Yi said were the more practical middle-level martial techniques of the Green Cloud sect. They might not be very powerful, and in a battle of Yuanying stage, they might not be able to cause much damage, but they were superior in terms of release speed. After Jin Weifeng received the guidance, his body had already moved according to Lin Yi's instructions. After taking a step forward, although he was still within the attack range of Zhou Baixiang's martial technique, he avoided the most powerful frontal attack. Following that, the vacuum sword wave hit Zhou Baixiang's martial technique from the side, causing the rest of the attack to miss. Jin Weifeng was completely frightened but not in danger, and survived this attack unscathed. Yu won. Not only that, when Jin Weifeng punched out with the soaring cannon fist Lin Yi mentioned, there was clearly no one there. If it weren't for his trust in Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng would have thought that he had missed. However, at the same time the fist power erupted, Zhou Baixiang had strangely appeared at that spot, as if he was rushing to get beaten up. Amidst a loud explosion, the 9 illusion cloud body was unable to shake off Jin Weifeng's attack. Zhou Baixiang, who was caught off guard, was forcibly pushed back 2 steps by the soaring cannon fist, a martial skill that couldn't be considered powerful. Jin Weifeng himself was also pushed back 2 steps by the recoil. On the surface, it seemed that both sides were evenly matched. Only Zhou Baixiang knew in his heart that he was at a complete disadvantage in these 2 rounds. All his attacks and defenses seemed to be within Jin Weifeng's calculations. If this continued, he would definitely lose. This discovery made Zhou Baixiang very shocked. Jin Weifeng was just an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, but he couldn't gain any advantage. On the other side, there was an even more unfathomable Lin Yi. Today's matter, no matter how he looked at it, he would definitely suffer a loss. Stop! Zhou Baixiang saw that Jin Weifeng was still excitedly rushing forward, so he hurriedly took a few steps back and raised his hand to shout. If it was Lin Yi, he wouldn't care what the enemy said. He would still continue to fight. However, Jin Weifeng, this honest child, really stopped and asked with a suspicious look, "What? Do you want to convince him?" Zhou Baixiang's old face turned red, and he coughed twice. "What do you mean by not convinced?" This old man wanted to say that the time we have here is very limited. Don't waste time fighting here. Let's just mine these spirit jades together. This was admitting defeat. Even if he didn't admit it verbally, it was clear that he was admitting defeat. Jin Weifeng was very excited. Martial Uncle Lin Yi was truly powerful. With just a few words of advice, he was able to deal with a peak mid-nascent soul cultivator so easily. Lin Yi didn't want to waste any more time, so he immediately waved his hand and said, "Forget it, I'll leave this place to you. There won't be much spirit jades for 5 people to mine." Yi Qingqing was slightly startled. They clearly had the absolute upper hand. So why did he suddenly give this place to the cloud-attracting sect? What he didn't know was that Lin Yi was currently in a hurry to find people. Moreover, this place wasn't far from where the 2 spirit-eating beasts were. Lin Yi wasn't at ease leaving Yi Qingqing and Jin Weifeng here to mine spirit jades. As for whether or not Zhou Baixiang and Yun Feiyang would be targeted by the spirit-eating beasts, that was none of Lin Yi's business. Sect Master Yi, the most important thing right now is to find your fellow sect members. Let's give the spirit jades here to the cloud-attracting sect. In any case, the nearby spirit jades are quite sparse, and I reckon that this isn't an area where the rich veins are concentrated. Why don't you come with us? Lin Yi glanced at Yi Qingqing and invited him to go with them. This was also for Duan Muyu's sake. Otherwise, Yi Qingqing wouldn't have received such care from Lin Yi. Yi Qingqing reluctantly looked at the broken rich vein and helplessly nodded. Then this junior will follow Master Lin. I hope Master Lin will take care of me. If Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng left, Yi Qingqing clearly wouldn't be able to compete with the 2 from the cloud-attracting sect. Thus, Yi Qingqing was very straightforward. After seeing the situation clearly, he didn't have anything else to say. Zhou Baixiang clearly hadn't expected things to turn out this way. If he had known things would turn out like this, he would have admitted defeat earlier. What was the point of wasting so much energy? He had almost died. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with the 2 from the cloud-attracting sect. He called out to Jin Weifeng and led them in another direction. By the way, does Sect Master Yi know of any way to contact others after entering this spirit jade immortal vein? After walking for a while, Lin Yi suddenly thought of how Zhou Baixiang had run over. Although it could have been a coincidence, Lin Yi felt that wasn't the case. After all, Yi Qingqing was a veteran sect master of one of the 10 minor sections. This wasn't the first time he had come to the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein. When he heard Lin Yi's question, he immediately smiled and said, "If you want to talk about contacting others, the only way is to use an immemorial communication pearl. However, this item is quite precious. It isn't as practical as a void bag, but its value is about the same. Very few people have communication pearls." Lin Yi nodded. This communication pearl sounded similar to a mobile phone. If he had the chance, he could use one to play with. Chapter 5570. Reeks. In this case, the two from the Cloud Guide sect should have a tool that could determine each other's position. It was probably lent to them by the Qingkuan sect. If there was a chance in the future, he could consider borrowing some tools from the Qingkuan sect to study. As the three talked, they had unknowingly walked a long distance. Lin Yi still maintained enough vigilance to prevent another sneak attack from the spirit-eating beasts. This kind of creature was also a very vengeful species. After suffering a loss in the hands of Lin Yi, it would never give up easily. Finally found it. Lin Yi first heard the sound of mining, and then he found the trace of Ling Tianyu in his divine sense. He couldn't help but reveal a faint smile on his face. This kid's luck was pretty good. Although he didn't teleport to a rich vein, he also didn't directly go to a waste vein like Lin Yi. In any case, he found a poor vein. After such a long time, he had already dug out a dozen good spiritual jades. If it was someone with the strength of immemorial invincible realm, he might have already harvested 100 or 80 spiritual jades. Lin Yi turned to Jin Weifeng and Yi Qingqing and said, "Ling Tianyu is in front. You two go and bring him over. I will wait for you here." "Okay, Martial Uncle, please wait a moment." Jin Weifeng immediately ran over without saying anything. Although Yi Qingqing was curious why Lin Yi didn't simply go with him, he didn't dare to raise any questions and could only follow Jin Weifeng. After the two turned a corner, Lin Yi directly took out 50,000 spiritual jades from the space of the jade pendant. These were all brought from the Heavenly Stage Island. The 50 to 60,000 spiritual jades that he had collected before were not completely filled yet. Lin Yi planned to let the three of them divide these spiritual jades. Judging from the rich vein just now, one person could at most obtain 10,000 spiritual jades in 10 days. Yu Yuan. Thinking about how the primordial pugilistic world could only mine 200,000 spiritual jades in a year, and they still had to use it for cultivation, distribution, and circulation as currency. It was indeed difficult to make ends meet. It was no wonder that the purchasing power of spiritual jades was so strong. Wow, so many spiritual jades. Am I seeing things? Jin Weifeng was the first to return. After seeing the spiritual jades all over the ground, he immediately shouted. Lin Yi ignored him and called out to the shocked Ling Tianyu. "Master Lin, did you excavate all these spirit jades? How did you do it so quickly?" Yi Qingqing was completely convinced by Lin Yi's prowess. He wanted to kneel down and worship him. It was no wonder that Lin Yi didn't have any thoughts about that rich vein. Compared to collecting so many spiritual jades, that rich vein was nothing. However, Yi Qingqing didn't understand how Lin Yi could take out so many spiritual jades. Didn't he say that the void bag couldn't be taken out once it was placed inside? Lin Yi didn't explain, and just waved his hand indifferently. "These spiritual jades can be divided among the three of you. It should be enough for the void bag to send you out." The three of them didn't ask how Lin Yi had taken out the spiritual jades. In any case, they were already used to Lin Yi's mysteriousness. Instead, the meaning behind Lin Yi's words surprised them. "You too, Granduncle Master. Do you want the three of us to leave first?" Jin Weifeng had an unwilling expression. It wasn't easy for him to train by Lin Yi's side. How long had it been before he had to leave? Lin Yi nodded and said in an unquestionable tone, "That's right, something has happened here. You must leave immediately. Otherwise, I won't be able to look after you all. As for the others, I'll also have them leave immediately after I find them." "Master Lin, just what happened?" Weren't you all fine just now? Yi Qingqing asked carefully. He didn't want to leave immediately either. It was rare for him to have a chance to build a relationship with Lin Yi. Leaving now would be a bit of a waste. There's no point in telling you. Just trust me. Lin Yi didn't want to tell them about the spirit-eating beasts. Just now, with 2 people following him, Lin Yi was confident he could look after them. But with 3 people, it would be a bit difficult. He couldn't be sure whether the spirit-eating beasts were secretly watching them or not. The best way was to send them away. Hearing Lin Yi say this, the 3 of them couldn't say anything else. They divided the spiritual jades on the ground and waited for their void bags to light up before teleporting out. After sending the 3 of them away, Lin Yi finally relaxed. He went to the poor vein that Ling Tianyu had mined before and stored all the jade waste on the ground into the jade pendant space. This place had obviously been mined many times. There were 50 to 60,000 pieces of jade waste on the ground, more than what Lin Yi had just taken out. It would be too wasteful not to store them. You 3. Why haven't the 2 spirit-eating beasts come yet? Is it because the damage caused by the spiritual sense vortex is too heavy, so they can't come for revenge? Lin Yi had been waiting for the spirit-eating beasts to come, but it seemed that the damage suffered by the spirit-eating beasts was more serious than he had imagined. Especially the last explosion, it had lost a lot of vitality. Forget it. It doesn't matter if these 2 spirit-eating beasts don't come. I'll go find the others first and see what the situation is like. After collecting the jade waste, Lin Yi continued to move forward quickly. However, 3 days passed in a row, and he didn't encounter a single person. This was completely different from the first day when he encountered someone. Standing in another waste vein area, after collecting the jade waste left on the ground, Lin Yi also felt a headache. In the past 3 days, he had been wandering around, and basically all the waste veins and poor veins he had collected were more than 1 million pieces of jade waste, which was not a small amount. However, he couldn't find anyone from the 10 young spirit veins. Logically speaking, in this kind of place with more waste veins and poor veins, he should be able to meet Immemorial Invincible and Soaring Heaven Sect. Unfortunately, he didn't. Lin Yi could only continue to move forward in a certain direction. What made Lin Yi feel strange was that in these 3 days, the spirit-eating beasts did not appear even once. This was somewhat not in line with the spirit-eating beast's temperament. Could it be that the spirit-eating beasts had not recovered from their injuries? It was very tiring to be so vigilant all the time. Just as Lin Yi was muttering to himself, his nose faintly smelled a trace of blood. Lin Yi's expression suddenly changed, and he rushed at full speed in the direction of the smell of blood. After turning 2 corners, they saw a broken corpse lying in the middle of the passageway. Underneath the body was a pool of dark red blood. Judging from the degree of coagulation, this person had died not too long ago, about an hour ago. Chapter 5571. His dantian has been torn open, and his golden core has been dug out. There are scratches on the corpse. Could it be the work of a soul-eating beast? Lin Yi raised his vigilance to the highest level after a careful examination. Not only did soul-eating beasts like to absorb spiritual energy from spirit jades, but the golden cores and nascent souls of human cultivators were also great nourishment for them. Therefore, Lin Yi had reason to suspect that this soaring sect elder had been killed by a soul-eating beast. It seemed that it wasn't that the soul-eating beast didn't chase after Lin Yi, but that it couldn't find Lin Yi at the moment. As for this unlucky fellow, he was obviously just a snack for the soul-eating beast. Lin Yi looked around and made sure that the soul-eating beast had left. Then he waved his hand and created a hole in the tunnel. He moved the soaring sect elder inside and buried him with rubble. After all, he was from an allied sect, so it was only right for him to restrain himself a little. After doing this, Lin Yi spread out his divine sense and continued to move quickly. He finally found someone. Although it was a dead person, it at least meant that there should be traces of humans in this area. Perhaps he could find someone else soon. He just hoped that it wouldn't be another corpse. After a while, Lin Yi found one of the 10 youngsters, and it was a familiar face, Bing Wuqing. Apart from Bing Wuqing, there were also two soul-eating beasts. They were surrounding Bing Wuqing and launching a series of attacks. If it wasn't for Bing Wuqing's strengthened merciless ice force, which could effectively reduce the speed of the two soul-eating beasts' movements and attacks, Lin Yi might have seen Bing Wuqing's corpse. When Lin Yi saw this, he naturally joined the battle without another word. This time, he had enough time. Lin Yi immediately used the soul-hooking palm in an attempt to kill at least one soul-eating beast at the beginning. However, when the soul-hooking palm approached the target, it was suddenly blocked by a layer of transparent light that appeared around the soul-eating beast's body. What? Does this spirit-eating beast also have a divine controlling bracelet? Lin Yi was shocked. 3 days ago, the knowledge whirlpool had been able to cause great damage to the spirit-eating beast, so there was no reason that even the soul-hooking hand could not cause any damage after 3 days. When Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi's arrival, her eyes immediately lit up, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on her cold face. The ice soul sword emitted a dazzling light, and after forcing back a soul-eating beast, she finally found the time to call out, "Boss Lin Yi." Lin Yi nodded in agreement. He then reminded, "Be careful, don't let them escape." The spirit-eating beast's ability to escape was definitely top-notch, especially after combining their earth escape and concealment. Lin Yi's divine sense was unable to detect any traces of them, unless they launched an attack. Bing Wuqing's heartless ice force could cover a relatively large area, and these two spirit-eating beasts had nowhere to hide. Since the soul-hooking palm was ineffective, Lin Yi simply released the knowledge whirlpool again. He wanted to see if it was because his divine sense attacks were ineffective, or if the soul-hooking palm was ineffective against the spirit-eating beasts. The results proved that the knowledge whirlpool that was effective before had lost its original power, and all of its attacks had been blocked by that layer of light. However, after Lin Yi's continuous attacks, the spirit-eating beast that was being attacked also revealed a human-like expression of panic. It screeched twice, turned around, and ran away with the other spirit-eating beast. Although Lin Yi wanted to stop them, his divine sense attacks were ineffective, so he really couldn't do anything about it. In the blink of an eye, the two spirit-eating beasts disappeared without a trace. Lin Yi suddenly had some guesses in his heart. Those two spirit-eating beasts were able to resist divine sense attacks, so it was very likely that they really had a tool similar to the divine manipulation bracelet. However, the strength of Lin Yi's primordial spirit far surpassed those two spirit-eating beasts by more than a level. Even the divine manipulation bracelet couldn't resist the divine sense attacks of such a difference, unless the spirit-eating beasts had a tool of a higher level than the divine manipulation bracelet. However, the number of times that the divine manipulation bracelet could resist was probably not many, or else these two spirit-eating beasts would not have fled. "Boss Lin Yi, thank you for coming over this time. Otherwise, I would have been in danger." Bing Wuqing put away her ice soul sword and ran over to meet up with Lin Yi. At the same time, she wiped the cold sweat off her forehead, and an expression of lingering fear appeared on her face. It was already quite rare for Bing Wuqing's expression to fluctuate. Lin Yi smiled and said, "It's also fortunate that you encountered these two spirit-eating beasts. If it had been someone else, even if they were stronger than you, it would have been very difficult for them to escape unscathed." "Spirit-eating beasts? Boss Lin Yi, are you saying that those two are spirit-eating beasts?" Bing Wuqing looked a little incredulous. It was obvious that she had heard of the spirit-eating beasts before. "If you've heard of them, then why didn't you recognize them?" Lin Yi asked casually. His mind was still on guard against the possibility that the spirit-eating beasts might return and launch a sneak attack. "I've indeed heard of them, but I've never seen them before." "So this is what spirit-eating beasts look like," Bing Wuqing said with a nod. Seeing that Lin Yi looked a little distracted, she did not continue the topic. Instead, she asked, "Boss Lin Yi, how many spirit jades have you mined? This is a rich vein. Why don't we mine here together? We only have a little more than 6 days left. If we continue to look for other rich veins, we might not make it in time." Lin Yi used his divine sense to observe. The rich vein where Bing Wuching was at actually did not have many reserves. It was about the same as the one at the Yingyun sect, or perhaps even less. Bing Wuching had mined for 3 days, and estimated that she had already mined more than 2,000 spirit jades. Her harvest was not bad, but of course, it was impossible for Lin Yi to mine the spirit jades with her. The place you've teleported to is not bad. Looks like the Qingquan sect still values your Snow Sword sect. Lin Yi said with a chuckle. The Snow Sword sect was a sect under the Qingquan sect. Lin Yi already knew that, but he was just joking. Among the original 10 minor sects, the Yingyun sect, Snow Sword sect, and Okuda clan were under the Qingquan sect, while the Everyday and Everyday sect, Evil Warding sect, and the Heaven and Earth sect were under the Five Elements sect. The Leaf Spirit sect and the Xuanyu sect were under the Heaven Awakening sect, and the Shangguan clan was under the Soaring Sky sect and the Blue Cloud sect. Every time there was a spiritual jade mining, it was basically the Qingquan sect and the Five Elements sect that benefited from it. Almost all the others would be teleported to poor or even useless veins. Bing Wuching curled her lips and said, Boss Lin Yi, you know that the relationship between the Snow Sword sect and the Qingquan sect has faded a long time ago. Whenever you want us to switch sides, you can just say the word. Chapter 5572. Keep these spirit stones. Once you're done with your harvesting mission, you can leave. Lin Yi took out 15,000 spirit stones and handed them to Bing Wuching so that she could activate the Void Bag's teleportation ability and leave this place first. Bing Wuching had long been immune to Lin Yi's miraculous abilities. She didn't even wonder why he took out so many spirit stones and immediately kept them. Thank you, boss, but I don't want to leave yet. Those 2 soul-eating beasts dared to ambush me. I can't just leave with my tail between my legs. Bing Wuching kept the glowing void bag, but she had no intention of leaving. Lin Yi didn't mind. He nodded slightly and said, That's fine. You're strong enough to protect yourself. Let's wait and see. If necessary, use the void bag to leave this place. Yes, Boss Lin Yi. Bing Wuching agreed and didn't say anything else. It was basically impossible to count on Bing Wuching to take the initiative to chat with others. Lin Yi didn't have any topics to talk about either, so the two of them moved in silence. Gradually, the spirit jade veins reserves became more abundant. There were almost no wasted veins left, and there were poor veins everywhere. Rich veins could also be seen from time to time, and the frequency of attacks from the spirit-devouring beasts also gradually increased. Another 5 days passed. During this period, Lin Yi and Bing Wuching encountered more than 30 surprise attacks from soul-eating beasts. Fortunately, they were all daunting but unharmed. However, the other members of the 10 young ones weren't so lucky. At least one corpse appeared from the Everyday and Everyday sect, Evil Warding sect, and so on. This time, what appeared in front of Lin Yi was the corpse of a golden core from the Okuda family. Fortunately, there didn't seem to be any nascent soul experts who had fallen so far. However, that didn't rule out the possibility that they were already dead, but hadn't been discovered by Lin Yi. Wuching, it seems like there are more than 2 soul-eating beasts. Lin Yi looked at the golden core corpse and frowned deeply. Just now, Lin Yi and Bing Wuching had just encountered a wave of attacks, and when they turned around, they discovered this corpse. Judging from the traces and time, it shouldn't be the 2 soul-eating beasts that had attacked Lin Yi. Bing Wuching nodded slightly and said, Indeed, the claw marks on this carcass are thicker and more solid than those of the previous 2 soul-devouring beasts. If I'm not wrong, this soul-devouring beast's abilities should be above those of the previous 2. Lin Yi had also noticed this. After so many battles, he had learned that spirit-eating beasts weren't completely immune to divine sense attacks. As long as he could exert enough destructive power in an instant, he would be able to break through the spirit-eating beast's external defenses. For example, his divine sense pill flame vortex was extremely destructive, but the soul-reaping hand was far less lethal in comparison. Because of this, Lin Yi wasn't too worried about the appearance of new spirit-eating beasts. His only question was how many spirit-eating beasts were there in the spirit jade immortal vein. Wuching, you mentioned spirit-eating beasts before, so you seem to know a little about them. Why don't you tell me about them? Bing Wuching didn't continue talking about spirit-eating beasts before, so Lin Yi didn't ask too much. But now that the situation had changed, it was more appropriate to ask. Bing Wuching nodded and said, "Okay, I thought you weren't interested, so I didn't ask." Lin Yi couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard this. It really took a little patience to communicate with an ice cube like this. Actually, I don't know much about spirit-eating beasts. I've only heard a little about them. These creatures are cruel and vengeful, which is obvious from the way they chased after us. Other than that, spirit-eating beasts all live in families, so if a spirit-eating beast appears alone, there will definitely be other spirit-eating beasts nearby. Many people have overlooked this and been killed by spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi basically knew everything that Bing Wuching said, so there wasn't anything special about it. But hearing this again helped Lin Yi sort out his thoughts. For example, this golden core corpse in front of him might not have been killed by one spirit-eating beast, but at least two. And they were even more powerful than the two spirit-eating beasts that Lin Yi and the others had encountered. What the hell, Wuching? We might have entered the lair of spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi chuckled and said casually. Then, he began to condense his vital energy and two kinds of alchemy fires into a bomb. At this time, if they were really besieged by more than 4 spirit-eating beasts, Lin Yi wasn't sure if he and Bing Wuching would be able to hold on. It was better to take advantage of the time they had and quickly prepare their trump cards. Big Boss Lin Yi, I heard that the lair of spirit-eating beasts is usually located in the most essence of a spirit jade mine. Moreover, spirit-eating beasts have a habit of collecting treasures. The best things on the bodies of those who are killed will be taken by the spirit-eating beasts as spoils of war. If we really find the lair of the spirit-eating beasts, it might not be a bad thing. Bing Wuching didn't look worried at all. Firstly, she was confident in her own strength. Secondly, she was even more confident in Lin Yi's strength. With this reason, even Lin Yi probably wouldn't have anything to say. Before you think about victory, think about defeat. Before we find the lair of the spirit-eating beasts, we'd better be prepared to be besieged. Wuching, listen carefully. If we really are besieged by the spirit-eating beasts, and your heartless ice aura can't hold on, you must teleport out immediately. Otherwise you'll drag me down, understand? Lin Yi spoke very seriously, afraid that Bing Wuching wouldn't agree. Unexpectedly, Bing Wuching nodded readily and said, "Yes, Big Boss Lin Yi. I'll definitely do as you say." Actually, if Lin Yi had insisted a little more 5 days ago, Bing Wuching would definitely have left immediately. After all, Bing Wuching would definitely listen to Lin Yi's words. It was precisely because Lin Yi didn't seem to mind that Bing Wuching suggested to stay behind and work together with Lin Yi. Since Bing Wuching had agreed, Lin Yi didn't say anything else. As long as Bing Wuching left, he could release the super alchemy fire bombs he had prepared without restraint. He wouldn't have to worry about accidentally injuring Bing Wuching. Let's go. I think we're almost at the lair of the spirit-eating beasts. Lin Yi continued to condense super alchemy fire bombs in his hands. He gestured for Bing Wuching to follow him and continue forward. More than 8 days had passed since they started mining. Those who were still alive should have mined quite a lot of spirit jade. Perhaps they had all left the spirit jade celestial vein. Hence, the frequency of rich veins appearing became higher and higher. However, not a single person could be seen. Chapter 5573. Watch out! Lin Yi yelled in a low voice and threw out the super alchemy fire bomb that he had prepared earlier. The target was 3 soul-eating beasts that were moving in the same direction. He didn't tell Bing Wuching to leave immediately because the super alchemy fire bomb contained the divine sense alchemy fire. Lin Yi could barely control the direction of the explosion. Although he couldn't completely control it, at least most of the power would be directed toward the 3 soul-eating beasts. Bing Wuching's merciless ice force should be able to withstand a small portion of the explosion's aftermath. This was the first time Lin Yi had used the super alchemy fire bomb. Lin Yi hadn't used this move against the soul-eating beasts in all their previous battles. Firstly, the soul-eating beasts were too fast, so the alchemy fire bomb couldn't hit them. Secondly, Lin Yi didn't think that the two soul-eating beasts could pose a fatal threat to him and Bing Wuqing, so he didn't need to use this move. Therefore, the soul-eating beasts didn't expect to encounter such a destructive attack. Under the influence of the merciless ice force, the three soul-eating beasts froze for a moment. Then Lin Yi's super alchemy fire bomb flew toward them. In the huge explosion, the entire mine tunnel was almost destroyed. This was even after Lin Yi had intentionally controlled the direction of the explosion and released the power toward the tunnel as much as possible to avoid affecting the surrounding rock walls. The aftermath of the explosion was less than 10%, but it still caused Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force to shatter instantly. Lin Yi used his extreme butterfly subtle steps to pull Bing Wuqing back in a sorry state. Even he, the initiator of the explosion, didn't expect this situation. Almost all of the three spirit-eating beasts that had been struck by the explosion had been reduced to nothingness. Regardless of whether they were able to defend against physical or spiritual sense attacks, in the face of a super core flame bomb that was a mixture of true qi and two types of core flames, all of their defenses were useless. The only spirit-eating beast that had managed to survive had launched a sneak attack from behind Lin Yi and Lin Yi, and it had no time to deal with Lin Yi and Mo Tiange in the midst of the commotion. However, as soon as the commotion in the passageway subsided slightly, it let loose a blood-curdling roar and attacked Lin Yi and Mo Tiange with all its might. Lin Yi raised a hand to unleash a super pill flame bomb that he had just condensed. Due to the fact that it had only just been condensed, its power was completely incomparable to the previous one. However, the spirit-devouring beast just so happened to pounce toward him with its mouth wide open. So Lin Yi's attack just so happened to fly into the spirit-devouring beast's mouth and explode with a bang. It wasn't very powerful, but it was enough to severely wound this spirit-devouring beast. After all, its mouth didn't have any powerful defensive abilities. Wuqing, you move on your own, Lin Yi suddenly said. After transforming into his primordial spirit form, he instantly caught up to the injured spirit-devouring beast. After the spirit-devouring beast was injured by the explosion, it didn't even care about revenge anymore. It immediately activated its concealment and earth escape techniques, disappearing into the rocks in an instant. After so many experiments, Lin Yi finally found a way to keep up with it, and that was to use the intangible nature of his primordial spirit form to unleash the Chu family's pursuing shadow. Of course, Lin Yi's pursuing shadow wasn't perfect, but with the assistance of the intangible nature of his primordial spirit form, it was still enough to deal with the spirit-devouring beast. In particular, the spirit-devouring beast still had a sliver of divine sense left behind by Lin Yi's core flame bomb. Before Bing Wuqing could say anything, she could only watch in astonishment as Lin Yi and the soul-eating beast disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Sensing that it was heavily injured, the spirit-devouring beast quickly traversed through the rocks. Meanwhile, Lin Yi's primordial spirit stuck closely to the spirit-devouring beast. If it weren't for the spirit-devouring beast leading the way, although Lin Yi's primordial spirit could also enter the rocks, it definitely wouldn't be able to move so quickly. After a while, the injured spirit-devouring beast had brought Lin Yi thousands of meters underground. Suddenly, the pitch-black underground suddenly opened up. Lin Yi's eyes lit up, and he saw that he had entered a spacious underground space. At the very bottom was a small stream that emitted a gentle light, but the stream was flowing with extremely pure spirit energy. Spirit vein marrow. Lin Yi was shocked, and he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was something that only existed in legends. Out of 100 supreme-grade spirit veins, there might not even be one that produced spirit vein marrow, let alone those high, middle, and low-grade spirit veins. A supreme-grade spirit vein without spirit vein marrow, once it was completely mined, it would become an ordinary mountain range. But a supreme-grade spirit vein with spirit vein marrow, as long as there was no problem with the spirit vein marrow, there would be an endless supply of spirit jade to be mined. The primordial small underworld was lacking in spirit jade, and it was completely because there was too little time to mine. If one could enter the spirit jade celestial vein to mine spirit jade 365 days a year, the amount of spirit jade here would probably not be inferior to that of Heaven Island. Moreover, with this spirit vein marrow, there was no need to worry about the spirit jade being completely mined. This was a treasure trove with an endless supply of spirit jade. The injured spirit-devouring beast immediately rushed toward the stream of spirit vein marrow. Due to the shock in his heart, Lin Yi's soul was a little sluggish, and he couldn't continue to use pursuing shadow to follow the spirit-devouring beast. However, it didn't matter. At this point, Lin Yi didn't need the spirit-devouring beast to lead the way. This was definitely the nest of the spirit-devouring beast. Lin Yi ignored the spirit-devouring beast that was rushing toward the spirit vein marrow. Instead, he threw out 3 divine sense core fire vortexes, which instantly enveloped a spirit-devouring beast lying on a huge piece of spirit jade. This spirit-devouring beast was over 3 meters long, and its strength had already reached the nascent soul perfection stage. Lin Yi could even sense that this spirit-devouring beast was faintly approaching the threshold of the profound ascension stage. If there was lightning here, coupled with the assistance of the spirit vein marrow, there was a very high chance that it could advance to the profound ascension stage. Human, don't waste your energy. It'll be very difficult for you to break through my defenses next to the spirit vein marrow. So come down here and have a chat. The spirit eater beast spoke in the human tongue, and spoke very calmly. Moreover, it was not injured in the slightest. The divine sense pillfire whirlpool spun wildly around it, but it could only stimulate a thin layer of light, unable to break through the light barrier's defense. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed as he dispelled the divine sense core fire vortexes with a wave of his hand. He swept his gaze toward the injured spirit-devouring beast, to find that it had landed next to the spirit vein marrow, before carefully picking up a sliver of the spirit vein marrow with its claws before dripping a drop into its wounded mouth. The wound then began to heal at a rate visible to the naked eye. It looked like the spirit-devouring beast, at the nascent soul perfection stage, was right. With the spirit-devouring beast's constitution, and the spirit vein marrow beside it, it had no fear of Lin Yi's attacks. Unless Lin Yi could use his soul-hooking hand to defeat the spirit-devouring beast, it was a pity that the soul-hooking hand was unable to break through the spirit-devouring beast's defensive barrier. Chapter 5574. The elderly voice of the spirit-devouring beast seemed to have chuckled, but there was no hint of a smile on its face. You don't need to be wary, I have no ill intent. Whether it's through strength or luck that you were able to make it here, you must be fated with our tribe. As you can see, there is the essence of the spirit vein here. And that is enough to prove that I have no ill intent. If we were to fight here, any violent fluctuations could completely destroy the essence of the spirit vein. That's not something you want to see, is it? The old spirit-devouring beast spoke slowly, and it seemed to be a little out of practice due to not speaking for a long time. So it took a long time to say this. Only now did Lin Yi understand why the old spirit-devouring beast hadn't taken the initiative to attack. The divine sense flame vortex he had unleashed earlier was still a spiritual sense attack, so it wouldn't have caused the essence of the spirit vein to become unstable. If Lin Yi had unleashed a divine sense flame bomb, the old spirit-devouring beast would most likely have fought with its life on the line. Before Lin Yi had a chance to speak, the injured spirit-devouring beast let out a sharp cry, as if it was saying something to the old spirit-devouring beast. The old spirit-devouring beast listened in silence before sighing with a hint of sorrow in its voice. Is that so? Are all 3 of them dead? Were they killed by this human? But if you don't go after them, they won't kill you, right? You don't need to be sad. Our tribe will grow up again. What's important is the future. Lin Yi raised an eyebrow. He had already discovered with his divine sense that there were 5 fist-sized eggs in the giant piece of spirit jade beneath the old spirit-devouring beast, and there were already faint spiritual chi fluctuations emanating from them. These should be the descendants of the spirit-devouring beast, right? He wondered which of the three that had died. In that case, the essence of the spirit vein was one thing, and these eggs were another. The old spirit-devouring beast really wouldn't do anything to harm Lin Yi for the essence of the spirit vein, and the 5 eggs in case something unexpected happened, and the entire spirit-devouring beast clan was wiped out. Human, I'm very sorry. Although you killed 3 of my descendants, it was only because they attacked you first. Casualties in battle shouldn't be a source of hatred. I hope this matter will be settled and written off, alright? The old spirit-devouring beast spoke slowly, and it seemed to be very sincere. Lin Yi already knew that he had the upper hand, so he replied in an indifferent manner. Write it off? You spirit-devouring beasts are bloodthirsty, and have attacked me no less than 30 times along the way. You've even killed several of my companions. Do you think you can erase all of this with a simple sentence? What do you want? Although I have my reservations, if you want to die, we both of you, of our spirit-devouring beast to be spirit vein. I want half of this essence of the spirit vein, and you have to return all of the human belongings that you killed to me. Lin Yi stated his conditions very straightforwardly. Although he didn't say he wanted all of the essence of the spirit vein, it was already an exorbitant demand of half. In any case, it was just a negotiation, so he was just asking for an exorbitant price. That's impossible. The old of the spirit-devouring beast refused without hesitation. Human, you have to understand that this spirit jade immortal vein has been the home of us spirit-devouring beasts for tens of thousands of years. You came here to mine the spirit jade, which is trespassing on our home. However, we spirit-devouring beasts have never killed every single one of you. At most, we only kill a portion of you humans. It's not that we're bloodthirsty. It's because the golden cores and nascent souls of you humans are the best material for nourishing the essence of the spirit vein. Since you need the spirit jade, shouldn't you make some contributions? Lin Yi was stunned. He had never thought that there would be such a reason behind the bloodthirsty and cruel nature of the spirit-devouring beasts. The golden cores and nascent souls of humans were dug out by the spirit-devouring beasts not to be eaten, but to be used to nourish the essence of the spirit vein? Human, the essence of the spirit vein can be consumed in small amounts, but not in large amounts. Otherwise, it'll be very easy for the spirit jade immortal vein to completely dry up. We spirit-devouring beasts have done nothing wrong in order to protect our home. Many spirit-devouring beasts have died at the hands of you humans, so there's actually no right or wrong between us. The old of the spirit-devouring beast spoke in a slow and unhurried manner, but his words were very reasonable. Lin Yi took a glance at the essence of the spirit vein. In reality, he knew that he couldn't really take the essence of the spirit vein away. After all, the primordial underworld still had to rely on the spirit jade of the spirit jade immortal vein in the future. 10 days a year, 20 people limit, it's all your spirit-eating beasts doing, right? Lin Yi suddenly changed the topic and asked about something that seemed completely unrelated. You're the one who set this rule, aren't you? The old of the spirit-devouring beast fell silent for a moment before replying. You really aren't an ordinary person to be able to see through the truth with just a glance. That's right. This restriction was indeed modified by us spirit-eating beasts based on the natural ancient formation of this immortal vein. After all, this is the home of us spirit-eating beasts, and we spirit-eating beasts feed on the spirit chi within the spirit jade. We can't possibly give you humans too much. Lin Yi chuckled coldly. You opened it for 10 days just to let our golden core and nascent soul cultivators in, right? Otherwise, if foundation establishment cultivators came in, you wouldn't have any materials to nourish the essence of the spirit vein, right? In order to dig up as much spirit jade as possible within the 10 days, the 4 big and 10 small children had sent their most powerful cultivators to the spirit jade immortal vein, which then became the prey of the spirit-devouring beast race. The old of the spirit-devouring beast fell silent for a long while, as if to express a tacit agreement. Lin Yi didn't beat around the bush anymore and said indifferently, I don't want to get involved in what happened in the past. From now on, the spirit jade immortal vein will only be open for 6 months every year. And the limit is 200 people. I don't care if you want to hunt down golden core and nascent soul cultivators. This is the law of the jungle, so there's nothing more to say. Do you agree or refuse? Give me an answer. 200 people in half a year, that's too much. The old of the spirit-devouring beast hurriedly opened its mouth, but it was cut off by Lin Yi. Agree or refuse? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes, and his gaze was as cold as a knife. He flipped his palm over to reveal the divine sense pill fire bomb that he had been condensing for a while. The old of the spirit-devouring beast roared as it sensed the terrifying energy fluctuations emanating from Lin Yi's palm. Even if you want to destroy the essence of the spirit vein, you have to listen to me. Otherwise, it'll be a life and death struggle, and no one will have any spirit jade to use. Is this the ending you wish for? Chapter 55-75. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. He clearly didn't expect the old spirit eater to be so unyielding. It seemed that the conditions just now were really beyond his bottom line. Alright, speak, I'll listen. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and gave the old spirit eater a chance to speak. However, he was still condensing the super pill fire bomb in his hand. The more time passed, the more powerful the super pill fire bomb would become. For Lin Yi, this wasn't a bad thing. The old spirit devourer beast heaved a clear sigh of relief, and he slowly said, "Let's not talk about how many spirit jades we'll have to mine in half a year. Do you think we'll have a chance to hunt down those 200 people with our current numbers? Isn't it more likely that we'll be hunted down instead? Without the nourishment of golden cores and nascent souls, the marrow of the spirit vein won't increase. Coupled with your mining and the consumption of our clansmen, although the spirit jade can be regenerated through the marrow of the spirit vein, the marrow of the spirit vein will slowly dry up." This was a reasonable statement, and Lin Yi couldn't refute it. If the limit of 200 people came from the 10 young ones, it would be a family of 20 people. They might split up after coming in, but from Lin Yi's experience, they would quickly gather together. As long as the 10 young ones didn't fight among themselves, it wouldn't be easy for the remaining 2 spirit eater beasts to ambush them. It was useless for the spirit eater beasts to kill the foundation establishment disciples. Once the golden core and nascent soul cultivators gathered, it was just as the old spirit eater beast had said. It was uncertain who would be the one to kill who. In this way, the reserves of the spirit jade immortal vein would very likely be slowly depleted. Even if there was the marrow of the spirit vein, it wouldn't be able to withstand such unbridled mining. We spirit eater beasts don't just hunt the golden core and nascent souls of the human race. Even after our clansmen die, the golden cores and nascent souls left behind will also be used to nourish the marrow of the spirit vein. After all, the marrow of the spirit vein is the foundation of our clan. As long as the marrow of the spirit vein exists, we spirit eater beasts can continue to thrive and survive here. The old spirit eater beast said sincerely. Lin Yi was a little moved after hearing this. You said that your golden cores and nascent souls are also used to nourish the marrow of the spirit veins? This news came as quite a shock to Lin Yi. Generally speaking, as long as the golden core and nascent soul of a spirit beast were undamaged, they would be protected by their brethren, even if they couldn't reform their physical bodies. In the future, it was very likely that they would be used as trump cards to save their brethren. However, the Spirit Eater Beast clan had used their golden core and nascent soul to nourish the marrow of their spirit veins. They were vicious to others and vicious to themselves. However, this made Lin Yi have some vague ideas. He needed to sort them out for the time being, so he didn't continue. Of course, as I've said just now, the marrow of the spirit vein is the foundation of the Soul Eater Beast clan. It is a very honorable thing to contribute one's golden core or nascent soul for the survival of our clansmen. Our clansmen view it as a sacred ritual, just like how our own life will continue to be reborn in the blood of our descendants after merging with the marrow of the spirit vein. At this point, the old Spirit Eater Beast's expressionless face revealed a rare hint of holiness. It seemed that this so-called ritual was indeed very important to the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Lin Yi nodded. He could understand the old spirit eater beast's words. As for whether he agreed or not, it didn't matter. What was important was that he had already sorted out his thoughts. You mean that the golden core and nascent soul used to nourish the marrow of the spirit vein are the same for spirit beasts and humans? Even if we don't use the marrow of the human race, we can just use the golden core and nascent soul of spirit beasts? Lenny had to figure this out. This was the most important point. Since the Azure Cloud sect was going to become the leader of the four great sects, it was very necessary to protect the production of spirit jade in the spirit jade immortal vein. There was no better way to protect the marrow of the spirit vein than the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Now that he knew that the Spirit Eater Beast clan wasn't as described in the ancient records, Lenny didn't mind finding a path that both sides could accept and achieve a win-win goal. You're right. In reality, the golden core and nascent soul of spirit beasts are both inner cores, and the inner cores of spirit beasts are more suitable for nourishment than the golden core and nascent soul of humans at the same level. The old spirit eater beast answered Lin Yi's question straightforwardly. Then why don't you let the human race use the inner cores of spirit beasts to exchange for the spots to mine spirit jade? I believe the human race would be willing to accept such an exchange. After Lenny finished speaking, he realized that his words were a little inappropriate. If that was possible, why wouldn't the Spirit Eater Beast clan do it? Sure enough, the old Spirit Eater Beast shook his head. Spirit beasts are rare to begin with. How many spots can we exchange for with the inner cores of spirit beasts? Furthermore, if we do that, we'll expose the truth about the existence of our Spirit Eater Beast clan. When that time comes, the human race will most likely hunt us down at all costs and seize the opportunity to take over the entire Spirit Jade immortal vein. Even the marrow of the spirit vein will be secretly taken by the selfish human race. Lenny was left speechless by the old Spirit Eater Beast's evaluation of the human race. This was the deep-rooted bad habit of many humans, so there was really nothing more to say. How many people in the entire primordial era were like Lin Yi who didn't even covet the marrow of the spirit vein? You have the formation, so you shouldn't have to expose yourselves. Lin Yi couldn't comment on the human race's temperament, so he could only change the subject. That's indeed the case. But without any prior communication, how did you know that we could use the inner cores of spirit beasts to exchange for the spots? As long as there was communication, the existence of our Spirit Eater Beast clan would inevitably be exposed. However, now that you've appeared, you can act as a bridge between our Spirit Eater Beast clan and the human race. The question is, how many inner cores of spirit beasts can you find? Also, high-grade spirit beasts are extremely rare to begin with, so how many years can you last? The old Spirit Eater Beast's thought process was very clear and logical. Lenny nodded. He had already thought about this question and had already formulated a plan. Seeing as the golden cores and nascent souls of the human race and the inner cores of spirit beasts can all be used to nourish the marrow of the spirit vein, then the inner cores of sea beasts should also be usable, right? Chapter 5576. You don't have to worry about that. I'll be in charge of this. As long as you think it's feasible, then we'll discuss in this direction. What do you think? Lenny wasn't being stubborn. After all, this was something that both sides could benefit from. In the endless ocean, no one knew how many sea beasts there were. In the shallow waters, there were mostly Foundation establishment stage sea beasts. Once they ventured out a little, golden core stage sea beasts would be more active. As long as the target was a golden core stage sea beast, it wouldn't be difficult for 4 big and 10 small nascent soul experts to form a team to hunt them. There had never been such an opportunity for cooperation before. Asking these high and mighty nascent soul old monsters to team up to hunt golden core stage sea beasts? They really couldn't afford to lose face, so the inner cores of sea beasts had always been a bit scarce. If they really came to an agreement, Lenny believed that at least golden core stage sea beast inner cores wouldn't be a problem. The old spirit eater nodded, then scratched its claws and calculated silently. After a while, it said, How about this? 1 golden core stage sea beast inner core will be exchanged for 10 spots and 10 days of mining time. According to the upper limit you said, 200 people in half a year. That would be, how many was it? I just calculated it. Wait, 10 for 1 inner core. 200 is 20? Linny was speechless. This old spirit eater had lived for so many years, but it seemed that it really hadn't learned how to calculate properly. Such a simple mathematical problem. Its claws didn't seem to be enough. After waiting for a few minutes, Linny was already speechless. He couldn't help but remind it. 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores. 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores? The old spirit eater's small eyes clearly showed some distrust. It seemed that the cunning image of humans was deeply ingrained in its heart. Fortunately, with Ling Yi's reminder, it was a lot easier to verify. After a while, the old spirit eater nodded happily. That's right, 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores. As long as we have this amount of inner cores, we'll open half a year for you humans to come in and mine spirit jade. Linny wiped his cold sweat and continued to ask, then how many golden core stage sea beast inner cores can a nascent soul stage sea beast inner core? The old spirit devouring beast didn't continue to struggle with its claws. After all, this was a relatively simple problem, and it immediately replied, let's go with a ratio of 1 to 5. 1 nascent soul stage sea beast core can be used as 5 golden core stage sea beast cores. And if all of them are nascent soul stage sea beast cores? Seeing the old spirit eater scratching its claws again, Linny quickly said, golden core, it is 72 to be, right? That's right. It seemed that Linny hadn't lied before, and had won the old spirit eater's trust. This time, it didn't check its own calculations, and immediately agreed with Lin Yi's answer. 360 golden core stage sea beast inner cores, or 72 nascent soul stage sea beast inner cores. This is indeed a huge fortune, but compared to the number of spots to mine the spirit jade immortal vein, it should be alright. Linny muttered to himself. He was already thinking about how to organize this hunt after the Azure Cloud sect became the leader of the 4 great sections. The old spirit eater seemed to be very happy after obtaining this number. It also understood that the spirit jade immortal vein was very large, and there were many rich, poor, and even useless veins. As long as it wasn't a nascent soul stage human who came to mine, even a golden core stage cultivator wouldn't be able to mine it very quickly. The amount of spirit jade that 200 people could consume in half a year definitely couldn't compare to the amount of nourishment from so many sea beast inner cores. In other words, this business was profitable. Also, with Lin Yi as the middleman, the method of collecting these sea beast inner cores wouldn't expose the spirit eater. As for the essence of the spirit vein, it was so deep underground that no one would dig it without knowing the truth. Lin Yi also mentioned the method of exchanging the sea beast inner cores. Can you set up an external interface for this formation? As long as you put in the sea beast inner cores, you can teleport the same amount of people in? No problem, we just need to make some slight adjustments. The old spirit eater said without hesitation. It had already thought about it. Now that it said it through Lin Yi's mouth, it wouldn't arouse the suspicion of the human race. Lin Yi nodded. That's for the best. I'll tell them after we go out that I found a hidden loophole in the formation. As long as we use the sea beast inner cores, we can teleport people in. Although there's still a time limit, and the number of people, it's clearly much better than now. I'm sure they'll be very interested after hearing about it. That's for the best. If that's the case, our Spirit Eater Beast clan doesn't need to take the risk to hunt you humans. We can just rest and recuperate here. Maybe we can even produce more offspring. You'll become the benefactor of our Spirit Eater Beast clan. The old Spirit Eater said happily. Even the Spirit Eater Beast next to it didn't have the hostility it had towards Lin Yi after listening for a long time. Although Lin Yi had killed 3 Spirit Eater Beasts, as the old Spirit Eater Beast had said, it was a very sacred thing to contribute to the survival of the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Although the 3 Spirit Eater Beasts were killed by Lin Yi, it also allowed Lin Yi to appear here and reach an agreement that was very beneficial to the reproduction of the Spirit Eater Beast clan. Their sacrifice became meaningful. Then it's settled. Go and make the slight adjustments to the formation first. Then give me the external interface. After I go out, I can also show it to them while convincing them. This will make it easier for them to believe me. Linny thought that it was time for him to go out as soon as possible. He didn't know if Bing Wuching was still waiting for him, so he urged the old Spirit Eater Beast to hurry up. Go and do it, and take our guest back to the surface. The old Spirit Eater didn't want to waste time, either. He immediately ordered the only surviving member of his clan to do the job and take Lin Yi away. The agreement had been reached, but the super alchemic fire bomb in Lin Yi's hand was still there. The faint power it exuded made the old Spirit Eater Beast panic. It was best to send Lin Yi away as soon as possible, lest he accidentally destroyed the spirit vein essence. If that happened, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Chapter 5577. After all, this alchemic fire bomb was just a scare tactic. It didn't have much power, so it was easy to cancel it. The old Spirit Eater and the little Spirit Eater were visibly more relaxed. It seemed that the super alchemic fire bomb was a great deterrent to them. Then I'll take my leave. If there's a chance, I'll come visit the old clan leader again. Lin Yi casually cupped his hands at the old Spirit Eater and transformed into his primordial spirit form. He used Pursuing Shadow and attached himself to the little Spirit Eater. The little Spirit Eater screeched at the old Spirit Eater, then turned around and scurried up, quickly disappearing into the rock stratum above. Without this Spirit Eater, it wasn't that Lin Yi couldn't go back in his primordial spirit form, but it was hard to say how long it would take. After a while, the little Spirit Eater brought Lin Yi back to the tunnel above ground. It handed Lin Yi a small triangular flag the size of half a palm, then turned around and left. Although Lin Yi was the benefactor of the Spirit Eater clan, he had killed 3 Spirit Eater beasts, so he was also the little Spirit Eater's enemy. The little Spirit Eater knew that it shouldn't continue to hate Lin Yi, but it was impossible for it to be nice to Lin Yi right away. Lin Yi didn't mind. He looked at the triangular flag and knew that it was the key used to exchange the sea beast's core for a teleportation slot. It could be activated after injecting vital chi into it. Of course, the little Spirit Eater hadn't finished adjusting the formation, so there was no point in activating it. He put it in his pocket. It was such a small flag, so there was no need to put it in the space of the jade pendant. He had to take it out later anyway, so it didn't take up much space in his pocket. The tunnels here were all the same. Lin Yi didn't know if the little Spirit Eater was taking revenge on him. The place he was sent to was obviously not the place he had left. He couldn't even identify the direction, and he didn't know where Bing Wuching was. Forget it, I'll look for Bing Wuching first. Anyway, the Spirit Eater beasts won't attack again, so there's no danger here. If I really can't find her, I'll just go out first. 10 days are almost up, and I'll be able to see her soon after I go out. After Lin Yi made up his mind, he maintained his primordial spirit state and flew out with a whoosh. The feeling of flying was very good. Anyway, there was nothing urgent, so it didn't matter if it was fun. After searching for half a day, Lin Yi did not find Bing Wuching, nor did he find any of the other 10 youngsters. The Spirit Jade Immortal Vein was indeed huge. Along the way, Lin Yi collected a lot of useless jade that was piled up on the ground. He had earned about 300,000 yuan. Since he had nothing to do, it was a good way to collect useless jade. He reckoned that the little spirit-eating beast had already fine-tuned the formation. Lin Yi did not plan to continue searching for Bing Wuching. He took out the void bag that he had prepared beforehand and filled it with spiritual jades. He activated the teleportation function and returned to Ruin Town. Another one. It's Lin Yi from the Blue Cloud sect. After nearly 10 days, after the spectators dispersed, a small half of them gathered on the last day. When they saw Lin Yi coming out, someone shouted, "The nascent soul realm cultivators in the great perfection of the 4 great sects and families were not here." After all, they could not wait here for 10 days. They would only come back to host the verification of the competition when the time was almost up. Lenny looked up and saw that the people who came out earlier had not left. They were all sitting on the platform and cultivating. On the side were Ling Tianyu, Jin Weifeng, and Yi Qingcheng, whom Lenny had sent out first. Yi Tongxian from Yi Ling's sect had also come out early. Lenny did not meet him before, so he was not killed by the spirit eater beast. He did not know why he came out earlier. As expected, Bing Wuqing hadn't come out yet. It seemed like she was still waiting for Lin Yi. She would probably be automatically teleported out when the 10 days were up. The invincible primeval race hadn't come out either. And neither had the two old men from the Chu family. The nascent soul realm cultivators from the other clans hadn't come out either. Seeing Lin Yi come out, Jin Weifeng was the first to stand up and say with a smile, "Martial Granduncle, you finally come out. This disciple is getting impatient from waiting." Ling Tianyu also came over. Smiling, he patted Jin Weifeng's shoulder and said, "Is there anyone who is impatient waiting for your martial granduncle? You don't want to live anymore, do you?" Master Lin. Yi Qingqing and Yi Qingqing from the Yi Ling sect were much more restrained. They cupped their hands respectfully and stood to the side. Lin Yi smiled and greeted them one by one. He didn't lose many people on his side, so he was naturally in a good mood. The great elder of the ruins town came over. Seeing Lin Yi come out, he looked a little unhappy and muttered in a low voice, "There are only 10 days in a year, but these people have come out one by one. Could it be that the spiritual jades in the void bag can't hold them?" Of course, the void bag couldn't hold the spiritual jades. This was obviously a mockery of Lin Yi and the others. However, Lin Yi didn't bother to pay attention to him. Normally speaking, these 10 days should be fully utilized. After all, most of the spiritual jades in the small ancient underworld were produced in these 10 days. Let's wait together. The time is almost up. The rest of the people should come out soon, said Lin Yi. He asked everyone to sit down cross-legged and wait. The others had been waiting for several days. Of course, they didn't mind waiting for another half a day or a day. So they all sat beside Lin Yi. They didn't practice, but just chatted casually. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, the great elder of the ruins town didn't say anything. He turned around and sat down on a chair beside him. He would wait for the 4 great nascent soul realm cultivators to come out. When the 10 days were about to end, the 4 great experts came out in advance. When Shangguan Qingyan saw Lin Yi, she came over with a smile and sat cross-legged beside Lin Yi. She didn't put on any airs and chatted with everyone. This made Yi Qingcheng and the others who didn't know the truth feel flattered. They felt that Shangguan Qingyan was really approachable. After a while the 10 days were up. The few people who didn't come out appeared on the stage one by one. When Bing Wuqing saw Lin Yi, a rare smile appeared on her cold face. However, there were many people around Lin Yi, so she didn't come over. She just exchanged glances with Lin Yi and nodded to each other gently as a greeting. The onlookers and the 10 young people all returned to their own places. Seeing that the 20 people who went in had obviously come out less, the disciples of the sects who had fewer people looked a little gloomy. Chapter 5578. The everyday and everyday sect was more miserable. 2 of them didn't come out, and one of them was a nascent soul stage grand elder. This was a great loss. As for Lin Yi's side, only the Soaring Heaven sect lost a gold core perfected peak. The others were all unscathed. This was a great fortune and misfortune. This time the mining of the spirit jade was a failure. Not only did 5 masters fall, but many people left the spirit jade immortal vein early. They wasted the annual mining opportunity. They really didn't care about the big picture. The great elder of the ruins town said coldly, although he didn't mention names. Everyone knew who he was talking about. Not to mention, he kept glancing at Lin Yi's side. Lin Yi didn't argue, only looking at the elder with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. He let him say what he wanted. After all, he'd know who was wasting time when he took out the spirit jades from the void bag. As for the agreement with the old spirit eater, Lin Yi didn't plan to say it immediately. No matter what, he had to wait until the Jadian sect became the head of the 4 great sections. Then he could carry it out legitimately. At the same time, he could build up the prestige of the Jadian sect, which had just become the head of the four great sections. If he said it now, it would only benefit the Qianquan sect. If Lin Yi didn't say it, the others wouldn't say it. The great elder also knew when to stop. After all, Lin Yi was mysterious and unfathomable. He couldn't provoke him. It didn't matter if he provoked Lin Yi a little. If he really angered Lin Yi, the Qianquan sect wouldn't be able to protect him. Next, we will check the mind-spirit jades to determine the score of the first round of the ranking competition. The Grand Elder of the ruined town picked up the 5 void bags expressionlessly and handed them over to someone to open. These were the void bags of the 5 fallen cultivators. When the time was up, the void bags returned to the Grand Elder. There are 2,373 spiritual jades in the 2 void bags of the Everyday and Everyday sect, 1,037 spiritual jades in the void bag of the Okuda clan, 1,037 spiritual jades in the void bag of the Evil Warding sect, 912 spiritual jades in the void bag of the Rising Heaven sect, and 765 spiritual jades in the void bag of the Rising Heaven sect. In the small Jianghu of ancient times, this amount of spiritual jades was considered a considerable amount of wealth. Unfortunately, under the premise that 5 experts had exchanged their lives for it, it was really not worth mentioning. Compared to the 10 days of mining, this number was far from being a lot. It should be because the time of death was relatively early. According to the rules, if someone dies during the mining process, the limit of 500 spiritual jades will be added to the sect as compensation. The Grand Elder of the ruined town looked at the temporary ranking and continued. Therefore, the Everyday and Everyday sect is temporarily ranked first with 3,373 spiritual jades. Okuda clan, please hand over the other void bag. The Grand Elder of the nascent soul stage of the Okuda clan didn't look good. Although the Everyday and Everyday sect was already the worst, the Okuda clan didn't have much of an advantage in the first round of the competition. After the person in charge of opening the void bags received the second void bag from the Okuda clan, he quickly opened it and counted the spiritual jades in it. The real-time ranking immediately changed. The Okuda clan, who was originally in second place, was now ahead of the Everyday and Everyday sect by a large margin. In the second void bag of the Okuda clan, there are 10,322 spiritual jades, a total of 11,859 spiritual jades. They are temporarily ranked first. The Grand Elder of the ruined town looks slightly better. The Okuda clan was under the Qianquan sect. Although one of their members died, the result wasn't too bad. In previous years, these spiritual jades were considered to be above average. The Tribulation Crossing sage also nodded slightly. Compared to the 5 Elements sect, the loss of the Qianquan sect was still acceptable. The only loss for the Okuda clan wasn't too bad. As for the head of the 5 Elements sect, Ma Zedon's face was really gloomy. Originally, the 5 Elements sect had 3 sects in the 10 small sects: the Everyday and Everyday sect, the Evil Warding sect, and the Wind Warding sect. In the end, the Wind Warding sect was directly eliminated from the 10 small sections. This time the Everyday and Everyday sect was completely wiped out. Out of more than 3,000 spiritual jades, it would be good if they could get 20 to 30% of it. The Evil Warding sect was also in the same boat. After the death of a gold core perfected realm cultivator, it was almost impossible for them to get more spiritual jades. Speaking of which, a total of 5 people died. 3 of them were from the 5 Elements sect. This time, there were only 4 people from the 5 Elements sect. This was really bad luck. It would be strange if Ma Zedon was happy about it. Hand over the void bag of the Evil Warding sect. The Grand Elder of the ruined town calculated the number of sects that had lost a member first. Therefore, Zhao Dan was already prepared. When the Grand Elder of the ruined town said that, he immediately handed over the void bag. To be honest, Zhao Dan didn't feel sad. This time, the gold core perfected realm cultivator, who died, was originally from Yin Chenqing's faction. Although after Yin Chuncheng was killed by Lin Yi, this gold core perfected realm cultivator decided to join Zhao Dan's faction. However, Zhao Dan knew that this person wasn't sincere. This kind of person's death was really not a pity. The only pity was that he died too early. The evil warding sect has a total of 9,734 spiritual jades. They are currently ranked second. The Grand Elder of the ruined town didn't report the exact number of spiritual jades Zhao Dan had obtained. He only reported the total number of spiritual jades Zhao Dan had obtained. Ma Zaidan's expression became a little better. Zhao Tong had worked hard. Although he had lost a disciple, compared to those disciples from the Shengguan clan, he shouldn't be any weaker, maybe even stronger. Ma Zaidan's expression became slightly better. Next, the nascent soul cultivator from the Soaring Heaven sect gave Lin Yi a void bag. Lin Yi hadn't met him before, so he didn't give him any spiritual jades. All the spiritual jades in the void bag were obtained by the nascent soul cultivator himself. He was teleported out at the last moment, so Lin Yi didn't have the chance to give him more spiritual jades. The Soaring Heaven sect wouldn't be at the bottom anyway. In the later stages of the competition, Lin Yi just needed to help them get as many points as possible. In the end, the Soaring Heaven sect's spiritual jades barely reached 8,000 spiritual jades. With the Shangguan clan's teleportation ranking, it was already a great achievement. Looking at the spiritual jades in the Soaring Heaven sect's spiritual jades, Ma Zaidan finally let out a sigh of relief. At least he felt a little happier. When he was unlucky, what could make him feel better than seeing someone else being unlucky as well? Chapter 5579. Yin Sect. A total of 20,714 pieces of spiritual jades. Ranked first for now. The Great Elder of Ruins Town revealed a rare smile. As a member of the Qingkuan sect, he was of course very happy to see such a performance from the Qingkuan sect. Snowsword Sect. A total of 28,526 pieces of spiritual jades. Ranked first, surpassing Yin Sect. This time, the Great Elder of Ruins Town was very happy. Although the Snowsword sect was also under the Qingkuan sect, they were very close to Lin Yi, especially after Yu Taitsong and the others died. The Qingkuan sect felt that the Snowsword sect was getting out of control. Therefore, when he saw the number of spiritual jades from the Snowsword sect, he was more surprised than happy. Looks like the Snowsword sect will take first place this time. This number has never appeared before. It's definitely a record, Sage Du Jie said with a smile. Although the Snowsword sect and the Qingkuan sect were in a state of separation, they were still under the Qingkuan sect after all. With this title, the glory of the Snowsword sect was the glory of the Qingkuan sect. Ma Zaidan snorted and did not say anything. Qi Dalai only smiled. Currently, Yi Ling's sect was the only sect in the Awakening Heavens sect. However, Yi Qingqing from Yi Ling's sect had left long ago. Yi Tongxian was not too late either. Naturally, Qi Dalai did not hold much hope. Only Shengguan Qingyan snorted and said, "What? Just because your Qingkuan sect can teleport to the rich vein area, does that mean you will definitely win? You don't even need to check the rest, do you? Haha. Does the Shengguan family head think that there is another sect that can surpass the Snowsword sect?" Sage Du Jie chuckled. He was afraid of Lin Yi, but no matter how powerful Lin Yi was, it was impossible for him to come out early and produce a large amount of spiritual jades, right? They had to be mined, and they had to be mined from the rich vein area right from the start. They had to not waste any time. Whether there is or not, we will know after we check, Shengguan Qingyun said with an unfriendly expression. In fact, he wasn't very confident either. The location where the Shengguan clan teleported to wasn't a good location to begin with. If they wanted to find the rich vein, they would have to waste a lot of time. Not to mention, there would be a lot of people who would come out in advance, including Lin Yi. To be honest, Shengguan Qingyun had the same opinion as the others. He felt that it would be great if the few sects under the Shengguan clan could surpass those dead sections. This could be considered a mid-tier ranking, and it should be enough. However, when he saw the tribulation transcending sage's expression, Shangguan Qing Yin felt extremely uncomfortable. The Leaf Spirit sect has mined a total of 21,892 pieces of spiritual jade, temporarily ranked second. The great elder of Ruins Town could hardly believe his own eyes. It was normal for the Snow Sword faction to mine a lot of spirit jades. After all, they were in the rich vein area when they entered. Moreover, Bing Wuqing and Hong Qingyuan were teleported out after the time was up. They were the epitome of diligence. What about the Leaf Spirit sect? When did Yi Qingqing come out? Is there a full day? This was no different from a direct death, right? The minimum amount of spiritual jade that could be used to activate the void bag was 500 spiritual jades. Therefore, no one had ever doubted how many spiritual jades Yi Qingqing had. As for Yi Tongxian, he came out after 6 or 7 days. How did he get over 21,000 spiritual jades? Could it be that he happened to come across a spiritual jade mountain that had been mined? The audience was in an uproar. No one had expected such an outcome. After Qi Dalai recovered from the shock, he smiled happily. No matter how the Leaf Spirit sect did it, they were the only seedlings of the Enlightened Heavens sect among the top 10. Being able to get second place was a very honorable thing. The tribulation transcending sage said to the great elder of Ruins Town expressionlessly. Continue. After all, the Leaf Spirit sect was a branch of the Enlightened Heavens sect, and it was the only branch. If they continued to fight, the Enlightened Heavens sect would definitely lose face. In the past it wouldn't matter, but now, with the rise of the Shangguan clan and the strange and unpredictable Blue Cloud sect, the tribulation transcending sage wanted to rope in the Enlightened Heavens sect, a relatively neutral sect. Therefore, he didn't want any unnecessary situations to happen. Besides, the sudden movement of the Leaf Spirit sect made the tribulation transcending sage feel uneasy. Could it be that the other sects of the Shangguan clan were acting the same way as the Leaf Spirit sect? It couldn't be that strange, right? Since his boss had spoken, the great elder of Ruins Town could only do as he was told. He immediately asked someone to open the void bag of the Chu family. Lin wasn't able to find the 2 disciples from the Chu family. Furthermore, this was the first time that the Chu family had entered the top 10, so no one had high expectations for them, including Lin himself. However, the final result shocked everyone. The 2 disciples from the Chu family had obtained a total of 20,715 spiritual jades, 1 piece more than the Yin sect. They had even replaced the Yin sect as the temporary 3rd place. Let alone the disciples from the Yin sect. Even the tribulation transcending sage almost vomited blood. Was this done on purpose? How could there be such a coincidence? Lin also looked at the 2 disciples from the Chu family in amazement. These 2 old men's mining abilities were off the charts. They were actually able to obtain such an amazing result in such a difficult situation. This was truly impressive. If the Leaf Spirit sect and the Chu family were already amazing, then the Thousand Blades sect's result was truly shocking. Ling Tianyu was taken care of by Lin Yi. But the invincible ancient immemorial didn't encounter Lin Yi. He completely mined by himself. However, the invincible ancient immemorial was, after all, a veteran nascent soul stage cultivator, and he was also very experienced in mining spiritual jades. However, the final sum of the 2 disciples exceeded 30,000 spiritual jades, which immediately caused an uproar. The record that the Snow Sword sect had just broken was once again broken by the Thousand Blades sect. Furthermore, one of them, Ling Tianyu, had only stayed inside for 1 day. Now no one would think that they were wasting their precious time by coming out first. They would only think that they were wasting their resources. If they could obtain so many spiritual jades in 1 day, wouldn't it be at least 7 or 8 times more in 10 days? How many spiritual jades would that be? How many more spiritual jades would the people of the ancient Jianghu get? After the shock, everyone couldn't help but start discussing. The Thousand Blades sect's performance in the top 10 had already been very amazing. They didn't expect that it would be the same in the top 10. Could it be that this sect with only 2 disciples was really going to soar into the sky in one go? Cheating. Ling Tian, you must have cheated. Wei Dao suddenly jumped out and roared hysterically. Wei Tianbao was dead, and the Tyrant's Blade sect didn't manage to enter the top 10. His hatred for Ling Tianyu had almost driven him crazy. Chapter 5580. The great elder of Ruins Town was speechless at Wei Dao. Why was it this idiot again? Although Wei Dao was a disciple of Qingkuan sect, the great elder felt that Ling Tianyu's biggest failure was not killing him. Whether he cheated or not, what did it have to do with you? Ling Tianyu didn't mind spiritual jades, but you, Wei Dao, did? Did you see it with your own eyes whether it was cheating or not? Even if it was cheating, as long as you took out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat, this daddy would welcome it. As if Ling Tianyu had sensed the great elder's thoughts, Ling Tianyu directly sneered and said, I did cheat. I took out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat. This young master has a lot of spiritual jades. Come over. I promise I won't smash you to death with spiritual jades. The audience immediately burst into laughter. Everyone knew that Ling Tianyu was being sarcastic. Who the hell would take out 30,000 spiritual jades to cheat? How retarded would one have to be to do something like that? Well, no matter how retarded one was, they wouldn't do such a thing. Because only a smart person like Lin Yi would do such a thing. However, at this moment, Lin Yi was looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle, silently reflecting in his heart. He had collected more than 1 million spiritual jades, but he only took out a few tens of thousands. Was it not kind enough? The great elder of Ruins Town glanced at Taoist transcending tribulation. Seeing that Taoist transcending tribulation didn't say anything, he turned to Wei Dao and reprimanded. Wei Dao, your Tyrant Blade School isn't one of the 4 big and 10 small ones. You have no right to speak here. Leave immediately, or your Tyrant Blade School will be expelled from Ruins Town. Being expelled from Ruins Town meant that the Tyrant Blade School wouldn't be allowed to participate in the next immemorial grand meeting. They could only re-enter after the next one. The great elder of Ruins Town was extremely fed up with Wei Dao, which was why he gave such a warning. Wei Dao's face alternated between green, white, and red. The grievance in his heart was indescribable. However, the people of the Tyrant's Saber School did not dare to offend the great elder of Ruin Town. They hurriedly pulled Wei Dao, who was unwilling to give up, back, and this episode officially came to an end. Although no one believed that the Thousand Blades faction had used their own spiritual jades to cheat, let alone 30,000, they might not even be able to take out 3,000 spiritual jades. However, this matter still caused the crowd to discuss endlessly, and they came up with all sorts of even more outrageous conclusions. However, with a single sentence from the great elder of Ruins Town, this noisy situation immediately disappeared without a trace. It was as if everyone had lost the ability to speak in an instant. The Clear Sky sect has a total of more than 40,000 spirit jades. The great elder of Ruins Town didn't even want to say the exact number, because it was meaningless. No sect had ever achieved 40,000 spirit jades before. Of course, no sect had ever achieved 30,000 spirit jades, and it was naturally impossible for them to achieve 40,000 spirit jades. However, if it was 30,000 spirit jades, they could at least imagine and look forward to it. As for 40,000 spirit jades, no one had the guts to even think about it. But the Clear Sky sect had achieved it directly. The whole audience was silent. This was no longer something that could be described as shock. Everyone looked at Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng in a daze, including Shengguan Qingyun, who was very confident in Lin Yi. Only those who had received spiritual jades from Lin Yi didn't find it strange. Since Lin Yi could give them tens of thousands of spiritual jades, wasn't it normal for him to keep 20 or 30,000 for himself? So to say, our Clear Sky sect is the champion of this event? 10 points, not bad. When the whole audience was silent, Lin Yi suddenly said with a light smile. Everyone was speechless. 10 points was already the highest score. And it was not bad? That was very good. What should they do? Did they even put very good in their eyes? Haha, our Thousand Blades faction is second, with 9 points, not bad. Ling Tianyu also joined in the fun, and said with a laugh. The whole audience despised this pretentious guy. There were only 2 of you, and 9 points was not bad? Was it super good? You were already second, what else did you want? Bing Wuqing twitched the corner of her mouth and said stiffly, third 8 points, not bad. Well, for the Snow Sword faction, this result could only be said to be not bad. Bing Wuqing was a practical person. In fact, everyone was too tired to complain in their hearts. You can talk all you want. Do you really need to maintain the formation? Yiling faction was 4th, with 7 points, and the Chu family was 5th, with 6 points. Not bad. Sage Du Jie and Ma Zaidan's faces were livid. When the rankings were all out, they realized that the Shangguan family was simply going against the natural order. Apart from the Rising Sky sect, who had lost 1 disciple, and finally surpassed the even more unlucky Everyday and Everyday sect, getting 2 points from the bottom, the Clear Sky sect and the Thousand Blades faction took the 1st and 2nd places. Although the 3rd and 4th places were from the Qingquan sect and the Enlightening Sky sect, everyone knew that they were close to the Clear Sky sect's Lin Yi. Being close to the Clear Sky sect was equivalent to being close to the Shangguan family. Damn it. The 5th place was also from the Shangguan family, the newly promoted 10 Minor Chu family. The top 5 contestants of the first event were either directly from the Shangguan clan, or they were indirectly related to the Shangguan clan. Dao Master Crossing Tribulation and Ma Zaidan exchanged a glance. From the look in each other's eyes, they could tell that they were thinking the same thing. Join forces. They had to join forces. Otherwise, the rise of the Shangguan family would be unstoppable, and the unlucky ones would definitely be either of them, or none of them. Lin Yi glanced at them, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally, and saw the silent exchange between the two. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. It was a little too late to think of joining forces now. Besides, was it really good to treat the Shangguan family as an opponent? The one that was going to rise was the Shangguan family, but the one that was going to soar was the Clear Sky sect. After looking away, Lin Yi had a faint smile on his face as he celebrated with the others. Although it was expected, they had still managed to take the top 5 spots, so it would be weird if they weren't happy at all. Besides, looking at Sage Du Jie, Ma Zaidan, and Wei Yidao's depressed expressions, Lin Yi's mood was getting better and better. Maybe they should do the same thing in the next category. Let everyone continue to watch them being unhappy so happily. Now, let's talk about the second category of the top 10 minor competition. Everyone quiet down. The Great Elder of Ruins Town was not happy with the Shangguan family's joyful expressions, so he quickly interrupted their celebration with a cold voice. The people on and off the stage slowly quieted down, and they all looked at the Great Elder. Chapter 5581. The Grand Elder of the ruined town scanned the stage and the audience. He was satisfied with the effect of his words, so he continued. The second round of the competition is to hunt for the inner cores of sea beasts. Everyone knows that the inner cores of sea beasts are the main ingredients for alchemy. They can even be said to be strategic resources. In terms of importance, they are no less important than mining spiritual jades. Before he finished speaking, people below the stage had already begun to whisper. Yes, sea beast cores were important resources. Everyone knew this, but at the same time, hunting sea beast cores was also a very dangerous thing. Although most of the sea beasts in the coastal waters were at the foundation establishment stage, there was almost no risk for golden core or nascent soul stage masters to hunt them. But if too many sea beasts were hunted, the smell of blood left behind by the sea beasts after their deaths would attract powerful sea beasts from the deep sea, and not just 1 or 2 of them would appear. It was like a school of sharks in the secular world. Or even more serious, a large group of sea beasts would directly riot. Quiet! The Grand Elder of Ruins Town shouted, obviously very dissatisfied with the chaos below the stage. After the voices below the stage stopped, he said expressionlessly, the rules for hunting sea beast cores are very simple. The 10 small ones will still send out 2 people each, and the sea beast cores hunted will be calculated according to their level. For the sea beast cores of the foundation establishment stage, the early and middle stage will be 1 point, the late stage will be 2 points, the peak stage will be 3 points, the early golden core stage will be 10 points, the middle stage will be 15 points, the late stage will be 20 points, the peak stage will be 25 points, and the nascent soul stage will be 10 times the points of the golden core stage. This method of calculating points was not bad. At least it was much clearer than the old Spirit Eater's vague golden core stage and nascent soul stage. Linny now thought about the old Spirit Eater's nascent soul stage and golden core stage sea beast core's ratio of 1 to 5, and it was really arbitrary. The one with the highest total points will get 10 points for the sect ranking, and so on, and the points will be added to the first competition. When the Grand Elder said this, he thought of the first round of rankings, and suddenly felt a little awkward, so he curled his lips and omitted the rest of the words. If each family only sends out 2, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? As long as they don't go to the deep sea, they won't provoke 2 powerful sea beasts. The Grand Elder stopped talking, and the audience began to discuss again. If there are only 20 people in total, it won't cause a riot. Unless these 20 people start a massacre and turn the coastal waters into a sea of blood, then those powerful sea beasts will be attracted. Don't be silly. These 20 people are definitely the strongest of the 10 small ones. How can they hunt 1 or 2 foundation establishment sea beasts in the coastal waters? How can they hunt 1 or 2 in the coastal waters? They should at least go deeper to hunt 1. For the experts participating in the competition, it's not a problem for them to kill golden core stage sea beasts in groups of 2. Moreover, there aren't many of them, so they won't disturb the sea beasts and scare them into hiding. If we really startle those powerful sea beasts, who knows who will be the one scaring the other? For a moment, there were all sorts of comments below the stage. Moreover, after a few sentences, the topic seemed to have drifted away. However, this time the Great Elder of Ruins Town did not intend to stop them. After all, what needed to be said had been said. Now it was time for Tin Little to digest the information. Uncle Master, why don't you let me follow you on this sea beast hunt? Jean Weifeng moved closer to Lin Yi and smiled brightly. It was obvious that he wanted to continue following Lin Yi. Lin Yi laughed and said, "No problem. You really need to train more. This is also a rare opportunity." Jean Weifeng was overjoyed. After thanking him with a smile, he turned around to report to Xianijia. The second segment of the competition came at the right time for Lin Yi. In the future, he would have to use the inner cores of sea beasts to trade for the Spirit Jade Immortal Vein quota with the Spirit-Eating Beasts clan. And hunting sea beasts was an unavoidable hurdle for him. This small-scale competition was a good opportunity for him to see how difficult it was to hunt sea beasts. Speaking of which, in this competition, hunting nascent soul realm sea beasts was clearly the best. After all, they could obtain a lot of points. If they wanted to exchange for the quota to mine spiritual jades, golden core realm sea beasts seemed to be more suitable. After all, it was rather dangerous for the people of the immemorial underworld to hunt nascent soul realm sea beasts. Golden core realm sea beasts were much safer and easier. No matter what, he should take this opportunity to hunt all golden core and nascent soul sea beasts. Only after trying would he be able to find the most suitable way to trade. Lin Yi thought about it, and turned to look for Bing Wuqing and the others to explain the plan of action for hunting sea beasts. Seeing that it was almost time, the Elder of Ruins Town spoke again. Have all the sects finished discussing? The candidates for the second segment of the competition have been decided? Let's go. Basically, the candidates for the 10 small sects were still those who had participated in the spiritual jade mining. However, because of the higher casualty rate in the first segment, those sect leaders did not participate. Instead, they changed to other disciples. For example, Hong Yuanqing of the Snow Sword sect was replaced by Lung Lung, and Yi Qingqing of the Yiling sect was replaced by Duanmu Yu. Of course, these two sects made this exchange mostly to let Lin Yi take care of them. After all, They all knew that there was an ambiguous relationship between Lin Yi and Lung Lung and Duan Muyu. He would never put them in any danger. In terms of safety, these two little golden core beauties were much better than the two sect leaders. 20 small flying spirit beasts landed on the high platform, under the command of the Elder of Ruins Town. They were going to hunt sea beasts. Of course, it could not be in the primordial mountains. These flying spirit beasts were to send the participants there. It would be much more convenient for everyone to have a flying spirit beast. The place to hunt sea beasts and obtain their cores is the sea area closest to the primordial mountains. Of course, this sea area is also a part of the primordial endless sea. They are all connected, so don't stray too far from the coastline. Otherwise, if you are attacked by powerful sea beasts, no one can save you. The Great Elder of Ruins Town gave a routine warning. In reality, if they really did that, they would only be able to hunt Foundation Establishment stage sea beasts in the coastal waters. Points like 1, 2, 3, and 3 were really not something the elites of the 10 small sects would want. Lenny glanced at those small flying spirit beasts. They were flying spirit beasts that were known for their speed. They were similar to the spirit birds on the Heaven Stage Island. They did not have any other special abilities. If they were to carry a load, they could only carry 2 people at most. It was most suitable for one person to ride. Chapter 5582. Yes, Martial Uncle. Disciple will remember. Jin Weifeng hurriedly replied respectfully. However, deep down in his heart, he didn't think much of it. Since he was following Lin Yi, how could there be any danger? After Lin Yi finished speaking, he continued observing those small flying spirit beasts. Of course, he didn't know what Jin Weifeng was thinking. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have seriously taught Jin Weifeng a lesson. In the endless sea, flying spirit beasts were their lifelines, and no amount of attention could be paid to them, unless Jin Weifeng could fly using his primordial spirit like Lin Yi. Each flying spirit beast is marked with the mark of one of the 10 small sections. Once you find your own flying spirit beast, you can set off. The competition will last for 3 days, and you'll have to come back on your own. If you exceed the time limit, your score won't be counted. Everyone, please pay attention to this. The Great Elder of Ruins Town waved his hand, and the second round of the competition officially began. A cold smile emerged on Lin Yi's face. These small flying spirit beasts all looked the same on the surface. But just like how everyone had different heights, short, fat, skinny, strong, weak, and small, ordinary flying spirit beasts were all the same. The few best flying spirit beasts had already been marked with the Qianquan sect and 5 elemental sect symbols. As for the ones from the Shengguang clan, they were all the weakest flying spirit beasts. Although the Qianquan sect and the 5 elements sect didn't do anything to these flying spirit beasts, the best flying spirit beasts were at least 10% stronger than the worst flying spirit beasts. Lin Yi didn't really care about this, but not everyone on Lin Yi's side could protect themselves in the endless sea. Of course, the stronger the flying spirit beasts, the better. In a critical moment, that 10% advantage could save their lives. Therefore, Lin Yi wouldn't allow the Qianquan sect to do something like this. Wait. Why do we need to arrange these flying spirit beasts in advance? Isn't it better for us to choose ourselves? Lin Yi appeared in front of the Great Elder of Ruins Town in a flash and asked calmly. The Great Elder's heart trembled. Facing Lin Yi head-on, he still felt a little weak. He couldn't help but take half a step back. After he came to his senses, he immediately stopped. However, in terms of aura, he was completely suppressed by Lin Yi. This is the rule. Why? Although the Great Elder of Ruins Town still pretended to be expressionless and arrogant, his tone completely revealed the anxiety in his heart. Rules are made by people. This rule is obviously not suitable. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he pointed at the ranking on the jade wall and said, "There's already a new ranking. Shouldn't we choose the flying spirit beasts according to this new ranking? If we still insist on the original method, then what's the point of fighting for this ranking?" Well said. I have long thought that this should be done. It's rare for Elder Lin to suggest it. Let's start now. Shangguan Qingyin immediately stood up to support Lin Yi. He originally wanted to call Lin Yi martial uncle, but after thinking that it wasn't the right time, he changed it to Elder Lin Yi. The great elder of Ruins Town still wanted to argue, but Sage Du Jie said, choosing the flying spirit beasts according to the new ranking of the 10 small ones is indeed a fairer method. Let's do it this way. Preparing the flying spirit beasts for one's own sect in advance was something that couldn't be done openly. Sage Du Jie knew that continuing to argue wouldn't do him any good. After all, the 4 big and 10 small ones were no longer the Qingkuan sect's words. There was no value in directly confronting the Shangguan clan and Lin Yi over such a trivial matter. However, since Shangguan Qingyin and Lin Yi took the initiative to speak, Sage Du Jie still had the upper hand. So he continued to say, however, in order to make it fairer, I suggest that we choose the flying spirit beasts according to the ranking. This way, the last sect won't even have the chance to choose the flying spirit beasts. What do you all think? Of course, the 5 Elements sect agreed. After all, the last sect was the everyday sect. They had already lost 2 of their experts. If they didn't even have the chance to choose the flying spirit beasts, wouldn't it be very likely that 2 more of their experts would die? As usual, the Enlightening Heavens faction didn't express any opinion. Thus, Sage Du Jie's proposal was passed. Lin Yi didn't really care about it. After all, the top 5 disciples were all on his side. The number of outstanding flying spirit beasts, and the weaker ones would be the same, around 5 or 6. In other words, the best flying spirit beasts would be chosen by Lin Yi's group, and the worst would be left at the end. As for the 10 flying spirit beasts in the middle, they were all about the same quality, so there wasn't much to choose from. It seemed like a fair proposal, but in fact it didn't change much. Since the decision had been made, Lin Yi, as the top disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, didn't hesitate to pick a flying spirit beast. He tore off the symbol of the Guiding Cloud sect, then turned to Jin Weifeng and said, Weifeng, you can ride this flying spirit beast. Thank you, Grand Uncle. Jin Weifeng didn't hesitate. He ran over with a smile and jumped onto the flying spirit beast. The face of Zhou Baixiang of the Guiding Cloud sect was as dark as ink. This was originally his flying spirit beast, and it was the best among the 20 flying spirit beasts. Now, it had become the mount of that little guy from the Blue Cloud sect. What made Zhou Baixiang's face even darker was that the flying spirit beast of the Snow Sword sect, which was also the one chosen by Lin Yi, had given the other flying spirit beast of the Guiding Cloud sect to Lung Lung of the Snow Sword sect. The Thousand Blades sect had chosen a flying spirit beast with the symbol of the Okuda clan. The Leaf Spirit sect, which was 4th, had also chosen a flying spirit beast with the symbol of the Okuda clan, which was given to Duanmuyu by Lin Yi. After the Chu clan was done choosing, there were no more high-grade flying spirit beasts left. The best ones left were only middle-grade flying spirit beasts. After the remaining 5 clans had chosen 1 spirit beast each, it was Blue Cloud sect's turn to choose again. The last 5 middle-grade flying spirit beasts were divided among themselves. The remaining 5 low-grade flying spirit beasts didn't need to be chosen anymore. After the selection was over, Lin Yi exchanged his middle-grade flying spirit beast with the Soaring Sky sect. After all, the Soaring Sky sect's ranking was too low. They only had 1 middle-grade and 1 low-grade flying spirit beast, which was too disadvantageous for them. 2 middle-grade flying spirit beasts were just SOSO. As for Lin Yi himself, he could fly in his primordial spirit state anyway. Having a low-grade flying spirit beast was enough. The 20 flying spirit beasts carried the top experts of the 10 clans and soared into the sky at the same time. They flew towards the endless sea at the edge of the primordial mountain range. The second round of the competition had officially begun. Chapter 5583. Cold Lung and Duanmuyu both wanted to follow Lin Yi, but Lin Yi had the big third wheel, Jin Weifeng. Plus, they were too embarrassed to fight to team up with Lin Yi. In the end, They could only follow Bing Wuqing and Yi Tongxian. Uncle Master, did your disciple get in trouble? Jin Weifeng flew to Lin Yi's side after everyone had left, popping his head out to ask. Lin Yi laughed and said, "If you think you're in the way, you can jump down and fish the sea beasts yourself." Jin Weifeng shrunk his neck and said with a smile, "I'm still very sensible. I won't be in the way at all. Forget about fishing for sea beasts. Don't think about those useless things. While we're still near the sea, hurry up and practice killing sea beasts." After Lin Yi said that, he controlled the flying spirit beast to get close to the surface of the sea. With a frenzy fire 8 trigram palm, he killed a late-stage Foundation Establishment sea beast underwater. A late-stage Foundation Establishment sea beast's inner core entered the space of the jade pendant smoothly. Looks like I'm still in the way and making Grandmaster unhappy. If I knew this would happen, I would have teamed up with Bing Wuqing and Yi Tongxian. Jin Weifeng muttered in a low voice, not daring to let Lin Yi hear him. Then he cheered loudly. Grandmaster is too awesome. Hunting sea beasts' inner cores couldn't be easier. After that, he imitated Lin Yi and got the flying spirit beast close to the surface of the sea. He unsheathed his long sword and used a simple vacuum sword wave to cut a Foundation Establishment perfected sea beast underwater into 2. Then, he wrapped the inner core with vital energy and put it into his pocket. Not bad. But with your strength, it seems like killing a Foundation Establishment sea beast is too easy. Let's continue deeper into the boundless sea and look for golden core sea beasts. Lin Yi nodded and used another Frenzy Fire 8 trigram palm to harvest a second Foundation Establishment sea beast's inner core. Sea beasts were naturally fond of hunting flying spirit beasts on the surface of the sea, especially flying spirit beasts that were ridden by humans. Therefore, when Lin Yi and Jin Weifeng approached the surface of the sea, they would naturally attract the attention of the sea beasts. Then, the hunters would become the hunted, and they would obediently offer up their inner cores. Jin Weifeng urged the flying spirit beast to keep up with Lin Yi. He grinned and said, "Martial Granduncle, it's really boring to hunt sea beasts at the Foundation Establishment stage. I don't think sea beasts at the Golden Core stage are that much stronger. Why don't we go look for sea beasts at the Nascent Soul stage? The inner core of an early stage Nascent Soul stage sea beast is worth 100 points. It's enough to match 100 early stage or mid-stage Foundation Establishment stage sea beasts." Actually, you can go hunt a sea beast at the peak of the Nascent Soul realm. I think you can do it, Lin Yi said without turning his head. Jin Weifeng was pleasantly surprised. "Martial Granduncle, is what you said true? Do you really think this disciple can kill a Nascent Soul realm sea beast? This is great. If he succeeded, he would be an idiot. Martial Granduncle." Lin Yi laughed and no longer paid attention to Jin Weifeng. "I didn't say anything about an idiot. You said it yourself." The two of them flew towards the depths of the endless sea. Very soon, they flew out of the coastal waters and entered the area where there were more Golden Core stage sea beasts. Lin Yi's main purpose this time was to see how difficult it was to hunt sea beasts at the Golden Core stage or the Nascent Soul stage. Therefore, after he attacked twice, he let Jin Weifeng be the main attacker so that he could see more clearly. To be able to show off in front of Lin Yi, Jin Weifeng of course couldn't ask for more. Therefore, he attacked with all his might. However, Golden Core stage sea beasts were not so easy to deal with. In terms of strength, Jin Weifeng could still crush any Golden Core stage sea beast. However, Golden Core stage sea beasts were extremely vigilant. After realizing that the two of them were not to be trifled with, they would hide far away. Jin Weifeng could only attack up to a depth of 20 to 30 meters below sea level. Any deeper than that would be useless, unless he also went deep into the sea. However, in that case, Golden Core stage sea beasts might be able to crush Jin Weifeng instead. "Martial Granduncle, these Golden Core stage sea beasts are really cunning." After another attack failed, Jin Weifeng helplessly turned his head and said to Lin Yi. Lin Yi grunted in response. However, he was thinking that the inner cores of sea beasts were indeed not easy to obtain. It was already so difficult for a Nascent Soul stage expert to hunt a Golden Core stage sea beast, let alone a Nascent Soul stage sea beast. If everyone was in such a state, it would not be easy to gather the 360 inner cores of golden core stage sea beasts that he had agreed with the old spirit eater. Martial granduncle, why don't I fly a distance away by myself? If I am alone, these cunning golden core stage sea beasts might take the initiative to attack me. Jin Weifeng saw that Lin Yi did not have any special ideas, so he tentatively proposed his own idea. Lin Yi was slightly startled when he heard this. However, thinking that there were basically only golden core stage sea beasts here, there shouldn't be any nascent soul stage sea beasts. Jin Weifeng's strength was enough to ensure his own safety. Thus he nodded and said, "All right, be careful. If there are nascent soul stage sea beasts, don't fight them recklessly." In the boundless sea, Lin Yi's divine sense covered a relatively large area. Even from afar, he could see if there were any nascent soul stage sea beasts around Jin Weifeng. Therefore, it was definitely a good thing to let Jin Weifeng train alone. Disciple understands, martial granduncle, don't worry. Jin Weifeng agreed, and immediately urged the flying spirit beast to fly away excitedly. Lin Yi paid attention to the direction Jin Weifeng was heading. He was not heading towards the depths of the boundless sea, but was flying parallel to the boundary between the coastal and deep sea. Thus he did not say anything. After Jin Weifeng completely disappeared from his sight, Lin Yi slowly urged the flying spirit beast to slowly fly in that direction. At the same time, his divine sense was closely monitoring Jin Weifeng's movements. Sure enough, as Jin Weifeng expected, when he was alone, the alert golden core stage sea beasts relaxed their vigilance, and some of the golden core stage sea beasts that were attracted by him began to probe and attack Jin Weifeng. Jin Weifeng seized the opportunity and killed 2 golden core stage sea beasts in a short period of time. He easily obtained 30 points. Not bad. It seems that this is a good way to hunt sea beasts. However, it is a bit dangerous. After all, I am alone in this area. Without the strength of a nascent soul stage, it is better not to try it. Lin Yi revealed a smile. No matter what, this was a good way to complete the deal with the old eater. In this area, there was no lack of golden core stage sea beasts. As long as the 4 big and 10 small nascent soul stage experts could put down their pride, it would not take too long to collect 360 golden core stage sea beasts' inner cores. Chapter 5584. Lin Yi was planning the future development of the ancient underworld in his heart, when he suddenly exclaimed. He turned his head to look in the direction of the sea, and his face quickly darkened. Noticing that Jin Weifeng was fine for the time being, and that he was able to deal with the golden core stage sea beast with ease, Lin Yi no longer hesitated, and immediately urged the flying spirit beast to fly in that direction at full speed. At the edge of Lin Yi's divine sense, he happened to find Duanmuyu, who was being chased. At this time, she was not with Yi Tongxian, and he did not know what had happened. Fortunately, Duanmuyu's flying spirit beast was better. Although it was not a match for the 2 people behind her, with the speed of the flying spirit beast, her life was not in danger for the time being. For the first time, Lin Yi felt that a low-level flying spirit beast was really not enough. He had to change to at least a mid-level flying spirit beast later. As Duanmuyu was also flying in the direction of Lin Yi, the distance between the 2 sides was quickly narrowing. Soon, Lin Yi could see 3 black spots in the distant sky, and returned to normal in a short period of time. Lin Yi could even see the anxious expression on Duanmuyu's face. Lin Yi. Duanmuyu also saw Lin Yi and immediately cried out in surprise. She originally wanted to fly to the deep sea, and then use the golden core stage sea beast in the deep sea to stop the 2 pursuers behind. Although it was dangerous, it was the only way to escape now. He didn't expect Lin Yi to be here. With Lin Yi's help, the 2 bastards at the back wouldn't even be able to take 1 hit. The 2 people who had been chasing Duanmuyu naturally saw Lin Yi, but after looking at each other, they did not intend to give up the chase. They just slowed down a little. Lin Yi had already seen that Duanmuyu was not hurt, and the anger in his heart dissipated a little. Seeing the 2 people slow down and let Duanmuyu pass, He blocked in front of them. Are you two from the Everyday and Everyday sect? Why are you chasing after a girl? Lin Yi directed the flying spirit beast to hover in front of Duan Muyu and asked with a cold expression. If it was in the past, Lin Yi would have fought first, but now, for the sake of future plans, Lin Yi didn't want to kill for no reason, so he gave them a chance to explain. These two people were indeed from the Everyday and Everyday sect. It had to be said that the strength of this sect was still quite good. Although two experts died in the first round, this time they still sent out an early Yuanying stage and a peak Jidon stage, but the aura of the early Yuanying stage was not very stable. He should have just broken through in the past 2 days. Lin Yi, right? I know that you're a martial granduncle of the Azure Cloud sect, and there are rumors that you're very powerful, not inferior to a perfected nascent soul cultivator. However, this is a matter between the Everyday and Everyday sect and the Leaf Spirit sect, so I hope that you won't interfere. The early nascent soul cultivator cupped his fist in a salute and spoke in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. This was also because Lin Yi was still showing the strength of the peak foundation establishment stage. After all, rumors were rumors. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't completely believe it. Hehe, you know that I am very strong, but you still dare to bully my, Lin Yi's, woman in front of me? Are you tired of living? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and said with a faint smile. Don't talk to me about the fight between sects, just tell me what it is for. Duan Muyu, who was behind Lin Yi, heard Lin Yi say that she was his woman, blushed slightly, but her heart was as sweet as honey. Without waiting for the two guys to speak, she directly took out a sea beast's Naiden of the late Jidon stage and said, They are chasing me for this Naiden. We originally found the sea beast of the Jidon stage first. You stole our Naiden, and you still have the face to say that we stole your Naiden? The other cultivator of the peak Jidon stage pointed at Duan Muyu and shouted loudly. No one knew if he was trying to increase his volume, to increase his courage to face Lin Yi. Lin Yi looked back and was also speechless. It was just a Naiden of the late Jidon stage. Was it necessary to chase people like this? Didn't they see that the sea below was already full of Jidon stage sea beasts? But then again, the offshore sea beasts were basically at the foundation stage. It was rare for a sea beast of the Jidon stage to appear. It was indeed easy to cause a fight. But the two people of the Everyday and Everyday sect, even here, could easily hunt the sea beasts of the Jidon stage. If they had time to chase Duan Muyu, it would be better to hunt here. Lin Yi, don't listen to his nonsense. If the sea beast he saw was his, then wouldn't the entire endless sea belong to the Everyday and Everyday sect? Of course, Duan Muyu knew that Lin Yi would help him unconditionally, but he still retorted angrily. Lin Yi smiled and comforted him. I know, leave this matter to me. After saying that, Lin Yi's mind moved, and the golden core stage sea beast's core in Duan Muyu's hand was put into the jade pendant space. With his strength equivalent to the peak of Mystic Ascension middle stage, using the jade pendant space in front of these two guys would definitely not be noticed by them. The two guys of the Everyday and Everyday sect had been staring at the Naiden in Duan Muyu's hand, but they didn't expect that the Naiden would suddenly disappear into thin air. They were a little dumbfounded. One of them rubbed his eyes hard in disbelief to confirm that the Naiden was really gone. Duan Muyu couldn't help but want to laugh when he saw the dumbfounded look of these two guys. There was no need to ask to know that this must be Lin Yi's doing. Duan Muyu had seen the mysterious space before. The Naiden that disappeared must have been taken into that space by Lin Yi. Lin Yi pretended to be surprised, and then said lazily, It's really strange. Why did the Naiden suddenly disappear? Now that the thing is gone, why are you still fighting? Hurry up and disperse. If you have time, you might as well clean up the gold core stage sea beasts below. The two of them subconsciously looked in the direction that Lin Yi was pointing at, only to realize that they were already at the edge of the coastal sea. Below the sea, there were gold core stage sea beasts, but because there were 4 people and flying spirit beasts in the air, those sea beasts were hiding deep and would not take the initiative to attack. In order to fulfill the agreement with the old spirit eater, Lin Yi had done his best, And he even directly taught these two guys who were a little silly. Chapter 5585. The early-stage nascent soul cultivator seemed to think that since he had just broken through, he had enough strength to face Lin Yi. After all, rumors were just rumors. The Lin Yi in front of him, no matter how he looked at it, was just a weak chicken with the strength of a foundation establishment perfected. Lin Yi chuckled. He was really fooled by this idiot. However, an idiot who couldn't see the situation clearly could already be considered mentally retarded. Lin Yi just wanted to have a little more strength when hunting the Aura's core stage sea beasts. But if they really wanted to court death, Lin Yi couldn't possibly stop them. Where do you think I have an inner core? Lin Yi spread out his hands, indicating that he really didn't have an inner core on him. This early-stage nascent soul cultivator saw that Lin Yi was showing some weakness, and immediately became arrogant. He thought that Jadian Sex Lin Yi was really famous. It was really just a rumor. I see that you have an inner core everywhere. Since you don't want to hand it over, then don't blame me for being impolite. This early-stage nascent soul cultivator shouted, and stretched out his right hand to grab Lin Yi's collar. He really looked down on Lin Yi to the extreme, thinking that he could pick up Lin Yi and hang him up to beat him up. Lin Yi sighed helplessly. Why was it so difficult to let him go? Did he have to be happy only after looking for a beating? Speaking of which, this guy's face was really asking for a beating. Then he would reluctantly help him. The divine sense whirlpool instantly hit this early-stage nascent soul cultivator. And at the same time, Lin Yi casually slapped him, directly sending him flying. After floating on the back of the flying spirit beast for a distance, he fell in a perfect parabola into the endless sea. The other golden core perfection cultivator of the everyday and everyday sect was as silent as a cicada in winter, not even daring to move a finger. Even an early-stage nascent soul cultivator was sent flying without a single move. He, a golden core perfection cultivator, wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the opponent's teeth. Hey, aren't you going to save your companion? Although he can deal with the golden core stage sea beasts for now, there's an early nascent soul stage sea beast that just happened to pass by, and it seems like it wants to take a share. Lin Yi retracted his palm and turned to the golden core full circle cultivator with a smile. That's right, an original infant stage sea beast. The golden core paragon was shocked. This was not a level that he could deal with. His companion was in the sea, and his strength was being suppressed. It would be good if he could fight on equal grounds with him. How could he fight against an original infant stage sea beast? Just as he was about to command the flying spirit beast to descend to save them, the pressure of a nascent soul stage sea beast rose. In this sea, nascent soul stage sea beasts were definitely overlords. Just like the golden core stage sea beast that Duan Muyu had hunted before. In the area of foundation establishment stage sea beasts, they were overlords. Ah, help! It really is an original infant stage sea beast. The early infant stage nascent soul stage cultivator that was slapped into the sea by Lin Yi struggled with all his might. He wanted to leap into the air, but he was held back by an inexplicable force. It was extremely difficult for him to even come out of the water to breathe, let alone leave the sea. The original infant stage sea beast was extremely domineering. It opened its mouth and was about to swallow the early infant stage nascent soul stage cultivator. The early infant stage cultivator was dumbfounded when he saw the bloody mouth. He even forgot to do the most basic defense and dodging. Lin Yi curled his lips. This early infant stage fellow was really weak. If it wasn't for the fact that he was strong enough to hunt golden core stage sea beasts, Lin Yi wouldn't even bother to save him. With a soul-hooking hand, the original infant stage sea beast flipped over and floated to the surface of the water. Lin Yi waved his hand and easily broke open the sea beast's body, retrieving its inner core. The blood of the nascent soul stage sea beast slowly spread, dyeing the entire area red. The golden core stage sea beasts instantly fled far away. Although they really wanted to eat the corpse of the nascent soul stage sea beast, the nascent soul stage aura, that wouldn't dissipate in a short period of time, made the sea beasts afraid to approach. Such a method caused the two from the everyday sect to be dumbfounded once again. Only now did they realize that the rumors were not to be trusted. How was this the strength of a full-circle nascent soul stage cultivator? Even a full-circle nascent soul stage cultivator wouldn't be able to instantly kill a original infant stage sea beast, right? Many thanks to Senior for helping us. With the help of his companions, the everyday sect's early infant stage cultivator finally returned to the flying spirit beast. He bowed his head and thanked Lin. Lin waved his hand and said, "It's nothing much, you don't need to take it to heart. I'll forget about your mistake this time. If there's a next time, you won't be so lucky." Yes. Senior is right. We juniors will bear that in mind. The two of them no longer had the arrogance from before. They nodded and bowed in agreement. Then, they hurriedly bid farewell and turned to flee the place. Lin, you can even kill an original infant stage sea beast in seconds. That's really amazing. Did you come here just to hunt for the original infant stage sea beast's inner core? After the two of them left, Duan Muyu asked Lin excitedly. Lin chuckled and said, "I didn't come here specifically to hunt for the original infant stage sea beast's inner core. After all, this is the area where golden core stage sea beasts are most active. However, something like what happened just now was something I could do. By the way, weren't you with your master just now? Where is he?" "My master and the golden core stage sea beast were injured when they were fighting. That's why I took the inner core to lure those two away, so that my master could escape. I don't know how he is now." Speaking of Yi Tongxian, Duan Muyu suddenly said with some worry. Fortunately, Yi Tongxian was not injured by the everyday sect. Otherwise, Duan Muyu would not have let those two guys off so easily. Lin Yi and Yi Tongxian were not familiar with each other, but for the sake of him being Duan Muyu's master, he still showed enough concern. "Is your master's injury serious? Which direction did he go? Let's go look for him now." Duan Muyu glanced in the direction they came from and said, "Master's injury is a little serious, but with the top-grade 5th-grade recover pill you gave him, there shouldn't be any problem. Moreover, Master flew directly back. At this time, if there are no accidents, he should have returned to the shore of the endless sea. There's no need to worry about his safety." Hearing Duan Muyu say this, Lin nodded and said, "It's good that your master is fine. However, after he gets out of danger, will he come back to find you?" "Master and I have discussed this before. If there is such a situation where we get separated, we will each hunt some Foundation establishment stage sea beasts in the coastal waters, and then slowly search for him. If we really can't find him, we will meet again in 3 days." Duan Muyu said a little shyly. It was not easy to meet Lin, and Yi Tongxian should be fine. She did not want to be separated from Lin like this. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.